The Radiance of Pokémon wisdom. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, Pokémon Divination. Pokémon fortune telling, using Pokémon to symbolize a person's life and predicting the fortune of others' lives. After leaving the Circle Bear Forest, Zahu and his friends came to another town. When they arrived at the Pokémon Center, they found a group of people talking about a book with great interest. Pokémon fortune telling? Kona showed a curious expression. Is it a new trend? It's like this. Pokémon fortune telling is a very popular book recently, and the fortune telling in it is very accurate. Miss Joy from the Pokémon Center saw that it was Kona, and because of her status as one of the 4 Heavenly Kings, she consciously handed over the book in her hand. Kona thanked Miss Joy, and then sat aside with Zahu and his friends to kill time. Everyone's fortune in life is related to Pokémon, and Pokémon is used to symbolize personal character and ability. Kona flipped through the book. Sister Kona, when did you start paying attention to this? Zahu asked curiously. He was very confident about his understanding of Kona. Kona's first interest was the battle between water and ice Pokémon, and her second interest was dolls, but she didn't have much interest in divination. Not particularly interested, but I'll take a look when I'm bored. Astrology divination can kill time very well. Kona smiled. Then boss lady, you can do divination for the boss and Kajiro as well. Meow said. Okay, let's find your birthdays first. Zahu's birthdays. Kona flipped through the book and stopped at the middle page and said, Lugia's fortune, the god of the sea, a man destined to be at the forefront of the storm. His life is full of twists and turns, but his overall fortune is constantly rising, and he is always safe and sound. That's quite accurate. Zahu was happy to hear this. This divination book seemed to be saying that if you capture the Pokémon related to your zodiac sign, you will be happy. In this way, it can be regarded as setting a flag for yourself to capture Lugia. What about me? Kajiro asked curiously. Molten's fate is that there will be many adversities and many blows, but the overall fortune will rise. The more blows you get, the more you will rise, and finally you will fly all the way to the top. Kona said. Fly to the top. Kajiro stood up straight. There will be many adversities and many blows. Isn't this what I'm talking about? So I will keep flying upwards like Moltres, and then fly to the highest? Thinking of this, Kajiro glanced at Meow Meow with contempt. I can't afford to offend the boss and the boss lady, but when I fly up, I will make you the youngest in the team. Meow Meow felt that Kajiro's momentum was not right, so he immediately stood up and looked back at Kajiro, showing a certain cat's resistance. The divination book says that everything is not accurate. Not necessarily. After all, Kajiro's first half of his life was right. Zahu smiled. Is that so? Let me take a look. According to this book, Moltres Kajiro will have good fortune today, and what he lost will be found again. Kona flipped through the book. Fortune? I'll buy some lottery tickets and try. Kajiro was about to walk away, but he suddenly felt something under his feet. He looked down and found that it was a coin. Meow Meow was stunned. What the hell was this? Could Kajiro really be very successful? Then Meow Meow, wouldn't I be at the bottom of the food chain? No, boss lady, my fortune? Meow Meow said anxiously. It depends on the person, not the Pokémon. It can't be that other Pokémon symbolize the life of Pokémons. Kona said. Then let's go find the author of this book. Meow Meow said. Find the author? Who is the author? Zahu was also curious. This book is sold in the breeding house over there. If you want to know, you can go over and ask. Miss Joy heard it and answered. We know, thank you Miss Joy. Kona thanked and returned the book. After that, Zahu and a few others set off towards the breeding house. This breeding house was opened by an elderly couple. They stood at the counter and prepared to sell. As soon as they entered, before Zahu and his friends had time to ask, they saw a 6 or 7-year-old child holding a Pokémon fortune-telling book and said, Excuse me, my symbolic Pokémon is Brazilla. What should I do next? Your symbolic Pokémon is Brazilla. If you can get Brazilla, you will be lucky for the rest of your life. The old man in the breeding house said. but I only have Onyx, not Brazilla, so what should I do next? The child said. Hey, you can put your Onyx here, and when a suitable Brazilla comes, we will notify you. The old woman next to him said. Okay, this is a Pokeball, I'll give it to you. Then, the little boy handed over the Pokeball honestly, and then jumped away. Zahu frowned when he saw this. Something was wrong. This way of handing in the Pokemon first looked like a scam. If you have the same Pokemon as the divination result, you will be happy. Boss. Kajiro turned his head and stared at Zahu. I'll give Moltres to you to take care of. Are you sure you can be its trainer? Zahu looked at Kajiro. Kajiro thought about the time when he was burned by Moltres, shook his head decisively, and said, I'd better ask someone. Go ahead. Zahu nodded and walked over with Kajiro and the others. When the couple at the counter saw Zahu and the others coming, they subconsciously showed a horrified expression in their eyes. It flashed away, but Zahu and Kona still noticed that the two people seemed to know them. Boss, my destiny Pokemon is Moltres, but I don't have Moltres. Is there any way to remedy it? Kajiro said. This is a very serious problem. There is no way to remedy it. However, with other flying Pokemon, it can also be improved. We recommend that you capture Charizard. If you have Pokemon that can be exchanged, you can give it to us. The old man said. Okay, I'll give it to you right away. Kajiro said as he prepared to hand over Pidgeot. No, I think I should think about it carefully. Zahu suddenly patted Kajiro's shoulder, interrupting Kajiro's action, and then pulled Kajiro out. The old couple in the store showed a heavy thoughtful expression. Boss, why did you pull me out? Kajiro was pulled out, still a little dissatisfied. You want to exchange Pokemon? Are you worthy of your Pidgeot? Just for a Pokemon you have never seen, you send away your companion who has been with you day and night? Zahu asked back first. This? Kajiro scratched his head. He was twitching just now and didn't think much, but he didn't want to give up just like that. That would be a bright future. Also, how do you know that the people in this breeding house are normal good people? Zahu asked back. Boss, are you saying that the people here may be scammers? Kajiro said. People who voluntarily hand over Pokemon are most likely scammers. Forget the last time we participated in the Magikarp competition, but the Magikarp was captured by someone. Zahu said. That makes sense. Kajiro nodded carefully, finally calming down. Yes, meow, there is something wrong with this store, so the book must be inaccurate. Meow Meow took the opportunity to say. Whether it is accurate or not, we won't know until we go in. Let's put on Makup and lurk. Zahu said. Lie? Kajiro and Meow Meow seemed to have some nerves touched, showing expressions of immediate interest. Chapter 177 News from Lugia. Zahu and his men sneaked into the breeding house. Zahu was familiar with the experience, and Kajiro and Meowth were even more talented in lurking. Kona, as the king of the alliance, had done a lot of sneaking into the enemy base. In addition, the breeding house did not seem to have any anti-theft preparations, so Zahu and his men sneaked in without any effort. Kajiro and Meowth felt that they had no sense of accomplishment. After being scolded by Zahu, they walked towards the warehouse, where the Pokemon were stored in the breeding house. When they arrived at the warehouse, the scene in front of them shocked Zahu and others. The Pokemon were all tied up in cages, and their demeanor was depressed. Obviously, they had suffered some bad treatment. It is indeed an illegal organization. Kona frowned. And judging from the handwriting, it is the style of Team Rocket. Zahu said. Fortunately, I didn't let the Pidgeot in. Kajiro looked relieved. Zahu and his friends were talking secretly when they suddenly saw the old couple in front of them walk in, then take off all their disguises, revealing their true faces, which turned out to be two young men and women. Armato, Zyra or something. Kajiro frowned. It's Armato and Kosaguro from Team Rocket. Zahu said unhappily. In the Pokemon animation, Team Rocket's appearance rate is second only to the Musashi Trio and Sakaki's two-man team. Oh, it's them, Team Rocket. Kajiro nodded. Armato and Kosaguro walked in together, not noticing Zahu and his friends at all. When they walked to the center, a large screen suddenly lit up, and then the image of a middle-aged man appeared in it, as if he was having a remote video chat with someone. Boss. After seeing the middle-aged man appear, Amado and Kosaburo immediately called out respectfully, "Boss." Zahu's eyes sank slightly. There was only one boss of Team Rocket, Sakaki. In theory, he is the biggest villain in the Pokémon animation and the longest lasting villain. He has appeared in every generation of Pokémon. Unlike the villains in other regions, he was eventually shut down by Zyozzy and Team Rocket. However, due to the overall harmony of the animation, the presence of this villain is not very high, especially in the Hone region. After a small drama of Sakaki in each episode, Sakaki's cold image has collapsed even more. However, as the leader of the largest underground organization in Kanto and Johto, Sakaki's ability is unquestionable. He can do whatever it takes to achieve his goal. He is a pure underground organization leader who wants to conquer the world and overthrow the rule of the Alliance. As for his personal strength, Zahu is not clear. According to the comics, Sakaki is a trainer with explosive strength, champion level. In the animation, his strength is not reflected too much. In the battle with Zyomeo in the Tokiwa gym, he was suppressed by Zyomeo and crushed by Mewtwo. Zahu was unsure of this guy's strength, but he was prepared for the worst, and he didn't want to fight the leader of the largest underground organization, so he positioned himself as the king, and didn't want to provoke him. However, he had to provoke him, because of Gyarados and Mewtwo in Kanto, so Zahu was patient and listened carefully, wanting to learn more about this biggest villain in the animation. "How is the plan going?" Sakaki's voice sounded. "Boss, the plan went smoothly. After we wrote a book on Pokémon divination in Manjin City, the people in this town really believed it. The crazy buying brought us a lot of funds, especially after we said that, as long as they got the Pokémon that they divined with, they would be happy. They sent a large number of Pokémon to us." Yamato reported back. "Oh, really? Let me see what level of Pokémon there are." Sakaki said, his eyes swept across the Pokémon around. "Also, Boss Sakaki, the Zahu who disrupted our plan last time is here, and Kona is with him. What should we do next?" Kosaburo continued to report. "Zahu, Kona?" Sakaki frowned, as if he didn't expect that Amado and his men would meet Zahu and his men. "If it's them, don't mess with them. Finish what you're doing, and rush to the Whirlpool Islands. There are Pokémon that look like Lugia," Sakaki said. "If it's Kona and Zahu and his men, then it's not something Amado and his men can handle." The whereabouts of Lugia. Zahu's eyes narrowed slightly. "The Rockets are also planning to go after Lugia." "Understood," Amado and Kosaburo replied solemnly, and they were greatly relieved in their hearts. After the last battle, they both had a psychological fear of Zahu. As for Kona, it goes without saying. The four heavenly kings of the Alliance is not a nice thing to call him. After chatting for a few more words, Amado and his men turned off the video call. Amado and Kosaburo also breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to arrange a retreat. Just as they started, Zahu and Kona came out and said, "Are you going to the police station on your own, or are we going to arrest you? Why are you here?" Yamato was shocked. "There's no point in asking this question. Just follow us to the police station, or you can't beat us," Zahu said. "That's not necessarily true." Yamato and Kosaburo threw out their Pokeballs at the same time. Rattata Infinite fight to the last. Haunter, hypnotize them all. Zahu threw out Haunter's Pokeball. As soon as Haunter appeared in the field, his eyes emitted a faint light, emitting hypnotic light, and without suspense, he hypnotized Yamato and Kosaburo and all their Pokémon. Yamato and Kosaburo lay down in a daze, with only one thought in their minds. It's over. They are going to be arrested again. "Okay, Kajiro, call the police," Zahu said calmly. "No problem." Kajiro immediately started to call Miss Junsha. As for Zahu, he walked to the side of the computer. Sakaki had just transmitted some information to him, which should be related to Lugia. As he typed on the keyboard, a bunch of information popped up. Zahu read it quickly, but he didn't find too much useful information. There were just some stories of mysterious Pokémon saving people in distress, and the overall range of places where these stories occurred. It was useful, but it was also useless. After all, the reduced range was not that small, and the area was probably equal to 80% of the Whirlpool Islands. However, Team Rocket only found this information, so Zahu felt more at ease. At least he would not be overtaken by Team Rocket. After dealing with these things, Zahu and his companions continued their journey and headed towards Manjin City. Chapter 178, Zyokian in Manjin City. After passing through a large forest, Zahu and his friends finally arrived at the largest and most prosperous city in the Johto region, Manjin City. Zahu and his friends, who have recently become familiar with natural scenery such as forests, suddenly came to the bustling and noisy metropolis. Looking at the bustling crowds and speeding cars, Zahu and his friends were still a little uncomfortable. After a long while, Myomio was the first to react and shouted, "Boss, we are finally in the metropolis. I don't care. I want to buy. Fried chicken, chicken legs, hamburgers, ham sausage. I want them all. And me, boss, I also want to have a big meal. And can we stay in a luxury hotel at night? Finally, we don't have to sleep in a tent in the woods. I'm so happy," Kajiro said with joy. Monini Sonasi Bali Monini, Guoran Weng, and Jigglypuff also agreed and wanted to go to a fun place. These can be solved in the department store. The department store in Manjin City is the largest in the whole city. Basically, you can find whatever you want. Kona smiled. Department store? When Zahu heard these 4 words, his body suddenly went cold, and he felt a very ominous sign. I haven't bought high heels and clothes for a long time. Kona smiled and glanced at Zahu. Sister Kona, we are traveling, so we don't need to wear high heels. Even if we wear them, you can't travel. Zahu laughed dryly. But it looks good. You can't travel for a long time, but you can walk around. Especially here, if you don't stay for 5 or 6 days to play, how can you say that you have been to the most prosperous metropolis in the Johto area? Kona rolled her eyes at Zahu charmingly. Zahu's body went even colder, and he could vaguely see his tragic fate. I can stay for 5 or 6 days. Long live the boss lady. Meow Meow shouted happily. Long live the boss lady. Kajiro also shouted. Monini, Guoran Weng, and Jigglypuff also followed suit. Zahu looked desperate. It was all fate. He smiled bitterly and said, "Then wait until I finish the gym match, and then we can have some fun together. Then hurry up." Kajiro and Meowth hurriedly urged. "Okay." Zahu smiled and shook his head, and walked towards the Manjin gym in Manjin City. King Kona, Dr. Zahu, are you going to challenge me? Just as they walked to the door of Manjin gym, a girl who was about to go out was surprised to see the 2 of them. "Yes. Zyokian, it's been a long time since we last met." Zahu looked at the lively girl in front of him and said, when he first came to Manjin City, he also came with Kona. At that time, he accompanied Kona to give a lecture on Pokémon, and the person who invited them was Zyokian's father. Zyokian was about the same age as Zyozi, and her personality was similar. She was also outgoing and lively. So when they were getting along, Zahu subconsciously took care of her more, and they had a good relationship. I originally wanted to take a day off and take Pippi to the department store. Since Dr. Zahu is here to challenge me, let's fight now, Zyokian said. Thank you very much. But Zyokian, are you sure you can remember the way to the department store? Zahu couldn't help asking. Zyokian was a nice person with a good personality and was willing to help others, but she had a very strong attribute. She was a directionally challenged person. As for how serious it was, even ZHI, who got lost every day, was qualified to say that she was a directionally challenged person, so you can imagine how directionally challenged Zyokian was. It's okay, I'm sure I can remember it. The department store is just like my backyard, Zyokian said with mysterious confidence, completely forgetting the embarrassing incident that she volunteered to be a tour guide last time, but ended up taking Zahu to visit most of Manjin City and couldn't find the department store. Okay, let's fight. Zahu nodded, without reminiscing much, and thought about other things after the fight. Okay. Zyokian nodded, opened the door that had just been closed, and called the referee. Zahu from Pallet Town vs Zyokian, the gym trainer of the Gold Gym. The match with gym badges as the stakes begins now. The number of Pokémon that can be used is 3. Is that okay? The referee explained the rules as usual, but since it was a general rule, Zahu and Zyokian didn't pay much attention. Okay, my first Pokémon, Nidorina. Zyokian threw a blue Pokémon and said, Nidorina? This is a poison type Pokémon, right? Not a normal type 1, Zyokian. Isn't the gold gym a normal type gym? Zahu was stunned and said. But Nidorina is cute enough. Zyokian said. Okay, that's also a reason. In that case, Lucario, you go on stage. Zahu said. Nidorina, we go first. Use poison needles. Zyokian said. After hearing this, Nidorina immediately shot many poison needles at Lucario. Lucario, wave missiles. Zahu said. Lucario condensed a powerful energy bomb with both hands and shot it at Nidorina, knocking down all the poison needles and hitting Nidorina directly. Nidorina immediately turned into a circle eye. Nidorina has lost her ability to fight. The referee ruled. Zahu looked at this scene and his expression froze. This Nidorina was unusually weak. It was probably weaker than the 3 starters that the novice had just obtained. Next, it's Pippi. Zyokian didn't seem to mind Nidorina's failure at all. She calmly took it back and then released another Pippi. Pippi, use the finger wave skill. Zyokian said. Pippi shook his fingers and flashed with strange power. Zahu saw this and his expression was subtle. There are actually people who use the face-saving trick of the finger wave skill in the competition. Pippi was jumping happily in the field. Not long after, a powerful whirlwind of fire suddenly rose and swept towards Lucario. Flame vortex. Zahu was stunned. This really succeeded in fighting with his face. He shook out the fire type trick to control Lucario. Is it true that girls who love to laugh will never have bad luck? Lucario, lightning flash, dodge. Zahu said. Although he was surprised, he still did not forget his duties as a trainer and immediately gave the most correct instructions. Lucario's body jumped and turned into a white light, dodging the flame vortex. Pippi, use the finger wave skill again. Zyokian continued to order. Zahu's mouth twitched slightly. Using it once is not enough. You want to do it a second time. Lucario, bone strike in one breath. Break it. Zahu said. 2 bone sticks appeared in Lucario's hands, and then they were thrown out quickly, like 2 javelins, hitting Pippi. Pippi was immediately in pain and ran towards Zyokian. Pippi, be good. It's okay. It doesn't hurt. Zyokian touched Pippi's head and said gently. Pippi lost the will to fight. Zahu won. The referee said again. After winning 2 games in a row, Zahu was not very excited because the 2 games were won too easily. The 2 Pokémon, one at the level of a novice rookie and the other at the level of an ordinary rookie, let alone him, even Kajero could defeat them easily. Zyokian, your last one should not be as powerful as the above 2, right? Zahu said. Don't worry, that's my biggest trump card. Zyokian affirmed. Okay then. Zahu nodded, thinking, the first one is cute, the second one is originally your pet, is the third one finally able to fight? Come out, Miltank. Zyokian threw a Pokeball and a fat, round, and kind-faced big cow stood on its feet in the middle of the field. Zahu looked at Zyokian's Miltank. Miltank, a cow Pokémon, is a kind Pokémon on par with Chandler. It has a gentle personality and can squeeze out a lot of milk every day. Its milk is the most nutritious milk in the world, suitable for the elderly, the sick, and children. It is said that children who grow up drinking Miltank milk will be particularly strong. Generally speaking, they are used as milk providers instead of fighting. However, this does not mean that Miltank's fighting power is weak. Just like all the Chandlers are nurses, and they all look easy to bully, but there are also perverted Chandlers. From Zyokian's first reaction, it seems that the training is very good, and it should be able to fight. Lucario, power up punch. Zahu said. Although he saw that Zyokian's Miltank was not weak, he did not take it too seriously. After all, his Pokémon would not be weak either, especially the fighting type Pokémon that could restrain the normal type. Miltank, roll. Zyokian also ordered immediately. Miltank immediately lowered his head, and his whole fat body rolled, crashing towards Lucario like a huge ball. Lucario punched with a power-up punch, and the 2 forces confronted each other head-on. Miltank's round body shook, and he rolled backwards with the force, while Lucario's body also shook, and his right fist was slightly numb. Before he could recover, Miltank rolled over again, and then Lucario punched with a power-up punch. The last scene was a series of bangs. Zahu was helpless as he watched the slightly low-end scene. The rolling of Miltank was a trick that would become more and more powerful as it rolled, and Lucario's enhanced punch was also a trick that would increase the power of its attack as the number of attacks increased. So you were strong, and I was strong, and although both of them had increased their power, the situation was still deadlocked. Zahu originally wanted to let Lucario dodge and then find Miltank's weakness and flip it over from the side, but then he thought, just compare it like this to see whether Lucario reaches the limit first or Miltank reaches the limit first, which is not a bad thing. For fighting Pokémon, the most important thing is to always be passionate and have an indomitable momentum. It is not a good thing to dodge blindly. Sometimes, being a little stupid can unleash more power. Those who are always tactical and calculating are not warriors. Thinking of this, Zahu suddenly shouted passionately, Lucario, don't give up. Burst out your strongest power. Punch it and knock it away. Milky, don't give up either. Roll down and knock it away. Zyrokian also shouted. She didn't want to be hit 3 in a row, and her Milky was very strong. How could it be easily taken by a punch when rolling over with its whole body? In the end, the winner must be himself. Two firm beliefs gathered together, and Lucario and Milky fought harder for their master, forcing out their strongest potential. The two Pokémon looked at each other, and both burst out their strongest power, and hit each other fiercely again. A deafening roar broke out, and finally the two Pokémon were shaken away at the same time, lying on the ground, dying. Lucario, hold on to become the strongest warrior. Zahu shouted. Lucario clenched his fists. To become the strongest warrior. This was his goal. He wanted to become stronger, so he was still carrying a weight on his body. Thinking of becoming stronger, a strong force rose in Lucario's limbs, and then he stood up tremblingly. Although it was difficult to stand up, he really stood up. Zahu smiled when he saw this. He won this game. Big Miltank, drink some milk. However, at this moment, Zyrokian suddenly shouted. Zahu's expression froze. What did you say? Chapter 179 Buying a Big Miltank. Under Zahu's shocked gaze, Miltank lowered its head and bit, and began to suck its own milk crazily, and then its physical strength increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zahu's mouth twitched violently. Miltank's milk and the eggs of Jigglypuff were listed as the two major health-preserving artifacts of Pokémon. Whether drinking milk or eating eggs, they can greatly improve physical strength. So even in battle, Miltank's physical strength can be restored. Okay, Miltank, roll. Zyrokian said ecstatically. Miltank rolled again, turned into a high-speed rotating ball, and pressed towards Lucario. Lucario tried hard to resist, but in the end he couldn't resist, and was knocked to the ground by Miltank. Lucario, lose the ability to fight. The referee said. Yeah, I won. Zyrokian jumped up and said excitedly. I only won one, okay. Zahu said. But next, Miltank will only become stronger and stronger. Our Miltank is invincible, and it will become more and more powerful as it rolls. Zyrokian said. The more you roll, the more powerful you are. Zahu looked at Zyrokian's big Miltank. Although he didn't want to admit it, he had to say that it was still very powerful. As long as he couldn't defeat it in the first place, as time went by, Miltank would only gain more and more advantages. Even if his own Lucario could keep up with the steps, Miltank could still heal himself. He had the dual professions of a meat shield and a nurse. Those with similar strength would basically not be its opponents. I just don't know what the characteristics of this Miltank are. If it is a courage characteristic, then it is really almost invincible with the same strength. Gasted. Come out and see. Zahu thought for a while and said. As soon as Haunter left the Pokeball, he smiled mischievously and flew around in the sky. Miltank, use rolling. Zyrokian still used the same trick. Zahu didn't give any instructions and watched Miltank press over Haunter, and then there was no effect. Haunter was stunned for a moment, and then he happily played with Miltank. This kind of opponent that couldn't beat it was its favorite. Freezing Ray. Zahu said. Haunter immediately shot out a beam of icy light, hitting Miltank, but Miltank was still rolling on the ground, and it didn't seem to be hurt much. The thick fat property, when attacked by ice and fire attributes, the damage is halved. Zahu smiled slightly. If it was this property, it would be easy to deal with. At least Haunter is invincible. Of course, if it was a herbivorous property, it would be even better. Haunter, continue to use freezing ray. Zahu said. Even if the damage was halved, the damage was still there, and it was definitely greater than the physical strength that Miltank could recover by drinking its own milk. In this case, just whittle it down slowly. Anyway, it's a sure win. After hearing this, Haunter laughed triumphantly and swayed in front of Miltank openly, even showing a mocking expression from time to time. He likes this feeling. You want to hit me, but you can't hit me at all, so I can only hit you. It's so cool. Xiaoqian tried her best to command Miltank to turn the tables, but Miltank, who had only learned the general special moves, could not hurt Haunter at all. Wait, I give up. Xiaoqian gritted her teeth. Anyway, she couldn't win. Instead of letting Miltank get hurt and lose, she might as well give up now. Attribute restraint, invalid attack, 2 bullying. Xiaoqian dared to continue to fight, even if it was generally weakened, but now forget it. You give up now. Haunter still wants to play. Zahu laughed. Don't come on, Dr. Zahu, I didn't expect you to be an evil trainer who uses ghost type. Xiaoqian was indignant. You are evil for using ghost type. Aren't you afraid that Kinkakuko will find you? Zahu shook his head and smiled, looking at Xiaoqian's unwilling look, and said, well, I won by luck. If your Miltank had the courage attribute, Haunter might not win. Courage attribute? What is that? Xiaoqian said with a strange look on her face. That's a rare trait of Miltank, which allows the special moves of normal and fighting types to hit ghost types. Zahu said. Ah, Miltank also has this trait. Xiaoqian said with ecstasy. Yes, but it's relatively rare, but it still exists. Zahu said. Then Dr. Zahu, come with me to my grandfather's ranch, and then borrow your Haunter. Whoever can attack it has the courage trait. I will train again, so that next time, you won't be so passive. Xiaoqian said. Okay. Zahu smiled. Then let's go quickly, I'll treat you to milk. The milk in our ranch is the sweetest. Xiaoqian said. The best. Zahu raised his eyebrows slightly, thinking of a big eater in his backyard, and thought for a while. Xiaoqian, can you teleport Pokémon here? I want to bring one over. Sure. Whatever. Xiaoqian said. Zahu nodded and teleported a big eater from Professor Oak's house. He promised to let it eat well, drink well and sleep well every day. There are delicious things to drink, and we can't forget that fool. Starting from the Manjin Gym, Zahu and his friends, led by Xiaoqian, soon arrived at her grandfather, Mr. Howard's ranch. Zahu and his friends looked over and saw that the mountains and plains were full of lazy and leisurely big milk cans, lying lazily on the grass, showing a very comfortable and lazy expression. Grandpa. Xiaoqian waved hard at an old man in the ranch. Howard, who was taking care of the big milk can, turned around and saw Xiaoqian and the others, and waved and said, it's Xiaoqian, and Konoshi and Wang and Dr. Zahu, you are all here too. Yes, Grandpa, we want to find a big milk can with courage here, and we want Zahu and others to drink the fresh milk from our ranch. Xiaoqian said. Oh, then come on. Mr. Howard smiled indifferently. Zahu lent Haunter to Xiaoqian, letting her experiment freely, and then he and his friends began to taste the milk produced by the big milk tank. After drinking it in one gulp, the milk fragrance overflowed, and Zahu and his friends' eyes all lit up. It was really the best milk they had ever drunk. Snorlax, come out. Zahu threw Snorlax's Pokeball. Snorlax, who was lazy every time he appeared, moved his nose first, then jumped up suddenly, like a gust of wind, passing by Zahu and his friends, and then everyone's milk disappeared. Snorlax. Kajiro's meow showed a very angry expression. Lucario, who had just recovered a lot of physical strength by drinking milk, was even more angry. He clenched his fists and actually used the enhanced fist to attack Snorlax. Haxorus was not afraid at all. His tail was shining, and he hit it with a dragon tail. The two attacks hit Snorlax at the same time, trying to teach Snorlax a lesson, but Snorlax yawned lazily, as if he had not been attacked. Zahu's hands, the first meat shield, is it just a name? Snorlax was not affected, but after eating the fresh milk, he felt that it was not enough. His nose twitched, and he smelled the smell of fresh milk in the refrigerator on the side. He moved immediately. He had just taken a step when Zahu's voice rang out, "Stop it, otherwise the snacks and sleep time will be halved in the future, and I will take you out for a trip." Snorlax, hearing that the snacks and sleep time would be halved, and he would still go out for a trip, Snorlax panicked immediately, showing a pitiful expression, aggrieved like a 500-kilogram child. Snorlax walked over pitifully, half crouched, and rubbed Zahu with his big head, saying that he would not do it again. "Don't starve me. I asked you to come over to drink milk and improve your food, but you came here to grab food. Apologize to Lucario and the others first." Zahu patted Snorlax's head and said. Snorlax walked towards Lucario and his friends with infinite pity and apologized. Although they were very angry about the fresh milk being robbed, the elder Snorlax apologized, and Lucario and other good kids said that they were generous and forgave Snorlax. Only Jigglypuff was still angry, because she really liked to drink this kind of milk. But Snorlax had thick skin and flesh, and when it slapped him repeatedly, Snorlax acted as if it was not hurt. She could only go to Zahu to complain. Okay, don't be angry, wait a while, I'll buy you some more." Zahu picked up Jigglypuff and comforted him. "Mr. Howard, how is the milk sold here?" Zahu asked. If it was just the few of them, it would be fine, as it was for entertaining guests, but if Snorlax was added, and it was free, Mr. Howard would go bankrupt. There is a unified purchase price standard, but if Dr. Zahu wants these Pokémon to drink milk all the time, I suggest you buy a few large milk cans. Mr. Howard said. "Buy large milk cans?" Zahu's eyes lit up slightly, and he turned his head to look at Snorlax next to him, and Jigglypuff in his arms. "Okay, I'll buy it," Zahu said. In the research institute, there was one Snorlax and 5 Leafkings. They should also take care of their bodies. The more they eat, the better they are. The stronger their fighting power will be when they fight. "Okay, if you buy 10 at a time, you can get a discount." Mr. Howard smiled. "No problem, just 10. Zahu said without caring. The Alliance approved a large amount of research funds for him every year. He could just use the research funds to buy 10 big milk cans. The reason was also justified. Only enough nutrition can make Pokémon develop best, and the research data can be the most accurate. Snorlax. Hearing that Zahu wanted to buy 10 big milk cans at a time to bring back to the research institute, Snorlax, who was apologizing, was excited. He ran over excitedly and pounced on Zahu, just like a big child. It was just a big child who forgot that he was 500 kilograms. So the whole table was smashed in an instant, and Zahu was pressed by Snorlax's big belly. Only one hand was left struggling outside, indicating that he was still alive. Help. Mom, I will never raise a Snorlax again. Chapter 180. Jigglypuff to be teleported. It took Zahu a long time to calm the excited Snorlax down, and he managed to get out of the situation. He apologized to Grandpa Howard for a long time, and then scolded Snorlax for a long time. Snorlax sat on the ground, at a loss as he was scolded. He should admit his mistakes and sit still when he was scolded. This was the conclusion he came to after being Zahu's Pokémon for so many years. As for whether he would change or not, that was a matter for the future. Drive Zahu, I have found a Miltank with the courage tray. Let's have another fight. At this time, Zyokyan suddenly ran over from the side, looking excited. Found a Miltank with the courage tray? But you haven't trained it yet, is that okay? Zahu stopped scolding Snorlax and said to Zyokyan, "It's okay. The Miltanks here are all strong, and they are all very familiar with me." Zyokyan said heartlessly. "Okay, then Haunter, if you have any more trouble." Before Zahu finished speaking, Snorlax suddenly stood up with a flame of fighting spirit in his narrowed eyes, and said, "I'll fight." "You want to fight?" Zahu said. Snorlax. Snorlax nodded sharply. For the sake of his current happy life with no worries about food and clothing, and more fresh milk in the future, he wanted to show his strong strength, and make up for his mistakes. "Okay, you go ahead." Zahu patted Snorlax and said. He was very confident that he would definitely win if he used Snorlax. Okay, they are all Pokémon with general attributes, so it will be better to fight against them. Dr. Zahu, I will let you know the strength of a full gold gym trainer who specializes in general attributes. Xiaoqian encouraged herself confidently. Milky Tank, use roll. The newly captured Milky Tank immediately lowered its head and spun around, rushing towards Snorlax violently. Snorlax looked at the small ball rushing towards him in front of him, and there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. What is this guy doing? Rushing over here, so that I can fire the destruction ray? Zahu did not give any orders. Snorlax tilted his head with a simple face, and did not react. Then, Miltank rammed into Snorlax with great force, and the whole Miltank was trapped in Snorlax's huge belly, and Snorlax did not retreat. Bounce out. Zahu said. He knew it would be like this. Miltank. Snorlax took another deep breath, and then his contracted belly suddenly expanded outwards, and then Miltank was shot out like a cannonball, hitting the ground and instantly losing its combat ability. What? Xiaoqian looked at the scene in front of her with a shocked face. Is this a joke? How could her Miltank be so weak? The opponent didn't even use the trick. Miltank, regardless of Xiaoqian's shock, Snorlax finally won a game, and felt that he had demonstrated his value, so he ran towards Zahu, picked up Zahu, and licked Zahu's face with his tongue. Okay, I know you are good. Zahu smiled and looked at Snorlax. No matter how angry he was, he couldn't show it in front of this guy. Xianagang once said something that was quite good. The most troublesome child in the family is the one that causes the most concern to his parents. Snorlax is the one that Zahu worries about the most among all his Pokémon. He is usually lazy and needs to take care of him when he sleeps. When he fights, he still has a lot to overcome, so it is inevitable that he cares about him more. Xiaoqian was still immersed in shock. If Zahu had used Snorlax to challenge the gym from the beginning, she would not have had the strength to fight back. Don't be shocked. Zahu's Snorlax has already surpassed what a trainer can handle. Even if I fight one-on-one, I'm not sure I can win. Kona said. Is it so powerful? Xiaoqian said in shock. Kona is a king. Don't be too shocked. It's just a king, not an insurmountable mountain. As long as you find a Pokémon with good qualifications and train it carefully, you can achieve it. Kona said. Perhaps because he is a king, Kona thinks it is very easy for Pokémon to reach the king level. In the third year of her travel, Langayan was the first to break through the king level. When she challenged the king tournament at the age of 18, she already had 3 kings in her hands, and the rest were all Quasi kings. On this day, Zahu and his group had a lot of fun at the Milkycan Ranch. It was not until the evening that they called home to send Snorlax back. But unexpectedly, after dialing the phone, the first person to appear was not Anako, but Golduck. Golduck called cutely, and then the Sucker Golem and Gardev were next to it also floated over and greeted Zahu enthusiastically. Zahu smiled slightly. He really didn't know if his mother had a buff that increased the affinity of psychic Pokémon by 50. In short, she didn't get close to anyone in her research institute. Even Gardev, which was difficult for her to test every time, had telepathy with Hanako when she saw her for the first time, and the two could communicate freely. Then when she walked on the side of the road, a Sucker Golem automatically followed her and acted as a babysitter. Now, Golduck, the pseudo-psychic, is also following his mother. Zahu, you're talking to your family again. Hanako's image finally appeared, with fluffy hair, looking like she had just washed her hair. Yes, I bought 10 large milk cans here, and they will be delivered to my house soon. I want you to sign for them, Mom. Zahu said. Milky cans. Great, I haven't raised big cows for a long time. Hanako said with shining eyes. Before Zahu became a doctor, she worked on a farm. Now she can take care of large milk cans and drink fresh milk. Hearing that they can drink fresh milk, Gardev, Sucker, and Golduck all sparkled, and all showed eager emotions. Okay, you will all have some to drink when we go back. Zahu looked at the Pokémon and smiled. By the way, Mom, why is Golduck also with you? Zahu said. You mean this kid? Because this kid likes me very much, and he took the initiative to come over to share the family pressure with the Sucker Golem. He is a good helper for me. Hanako happily hugged the neck of Golduck, and their cheeks leaned against each other. They were close to each other, and Golduck immediately showed an expression of enjoyment. Zahu raised his eyebrows and suddenly found something wrong. This Golduck is a dead duck. Just to avoid this guy harassing Kona, he deliberately didn't bring it when he went out for a trip, but he counted a lot. But it turned out that he underestimated it. This dead duck actually got close to his mother. Could it be that you want to? Mom, I'm a little short of manpower for the Pokémon battle here, so wait a minute. You can teleport Golduck here, Zahu said with a serious face. Oh, okay. Hanako nodded, indicating that it was okay. Gotha Golduck's eyes widened, indicating that he didn't want to do it. It's so good here, with good food, good accommodation, and Hanako who treats it like a son. What's the good of going out to eat and sleep in the open? Zahu glared at him with murderous intent. He should know this, otherwise Gyarados wouldn't mind coming all the way to beat him up. Don't be like this, Golduck. You have to go out and help Zahu, and help me take care of Zahu. Hanako touched Golduck's head and smiled gently. Golduck. Golduck's eyes suddenly became firm, indicating that he would do it. Zahu patted his head helplessly. Who is your trainer? Okay, Mom, I'll teleport Snorlax back now, Zahu said, and was about to teleport Snorlax. Jigglypuff on the side suddenly jumped up and shouted. You want to go too? Zahu looked at Jigglypuff in surprise. He didn't follow him? This is unscientific. Jigglypuff shouted Bolly and said that he wanted to drink milk by himself. I want to drink milk. Okay, then you go back first and have a good rest, but don't sing casually, Zahu said. Jigglypuff nodded to show that he promised. Okay, go back, Zahu said. Is Jigglypuff coming too? I like Jigglypuff a lot, Hanako said happily. Barley Jigglypuff also shouted excitedly and seemed to like Hanako a lot as well. Zahu smiled and felt that Jigglypuff would live well in his own home and quickly completed the Pokémon exchange. Okay, the gym challenge is over, and next, Zahu. Kona showed a charming smile. Zahu felt her chill inexplicably. When he played in the gym match, he should have let it slide a little and delayed a little. Chapter 181 Goodbye Mutuo. The warm sunshine shines into the forest. The trees are green, and the green leaves are full of vitality. The stream gurgles, flowing quietly and beautifully. Occasionally, a few carp kings and goldfish jump in the water, which makes the business even better. Zahu and his friends who just came out of the bustling Manjin city saw this beautiful scenery, and they felt a sense of peace and beauty in their hearts. After taking a deep breath of the fresh air from the forest, Zahu felt that his tired body was much more comfortable. The life in Manjin city these days can be simply described in 4 words: happy and joyful. Kona is happy, and Zahu is in pain. God knows, why do women who have poor physical strength when walking, have full physical strength when shopping? Zahu and Guor and Weng followed behind with bags, which was so miserable. Of course, the most outrageous thing is that Myomio and Zyajiro disappeared from the beginning of shopping and suddenly appeared when they were about to leave. Then the merchant notified him that the 2 guys owed money and asked him to pay. When he got the news, Zahu almost wanted to strangle the 2 guys to death. However, he had to accept the younger brother he had accepted, so he had to pay for the 2 bastards. It feels so monotonous. Manjin city is more comfortable. Myomio looked at the quiet beauty around him and said with disgust, Manjin city is comfortable? Zahu's expression darkened and his fists clenched. Yes, there are delicious food, good drinks, and fun things, Myomio said proudly. Myomio walked in front proudly. The most comfortable days he had spent in the past few months were his life in Manjin city. Thinking back to the life in Manjin city, Myomio's walking posture became more coquettish, as if he was in heaven. But when Myomio woke up, he soon found that he was not, as if he was in heaven, but really in heaven. He was kicked into heaven by Zahu. Zyajiro, who was walking behind, shook his head with regret. Silly boy, don't you know that the boss has been angry these days? How dare you show off? After you have tricked the boss, you should be as wise as me, Kachiro, and follow the boss lady's steps. Silly cat. After kicking it, Zahu felt much better. In the future, when he is upset, he should kick Meow Meow more. Meow. Just when Zahu was feeling a little better, Meow Meow in front of him suddenly made a frightened sound. Zahu and his friends changed their faces and ran over quickly, but when they arrived, they found that except Meow Meow, they didn't see any other Pokémon or people at all. Boss, there is something under this river. Meow Meow ran towards Zahu and said. There is something. So what? There should be water Pokémon under the river, Zahu said. But, I feel a big egg, and it seems to be Mewtwo inside the egg. Meow Meow said. Mewtwo? Zahu was shocked. Are you seeing it right? Absolutely not. It's not the first time Meow Meow has seen Mewtwo. Meow Meow said. That's right. But why did this guy come here again? Zahu frowned. He felt that the difference between Mewtwo and the animation was getting bigger and bigger. To be precise, after I traveled through time, the person who was most affected was probably Mewtwo. Originally, Mewtwo should have been living with the group of copied Pokémon at Clearcliff, and then they were discovered by Sakaki, and then they all started fighting, and finally, with the help of Zyalzi and others, they erased the memories of Sakaki and his group, and then lived happily again. But because of my intervention, the group of copied Pokémon are still living well in Oak's laboratory, and Mewtwo even fought with Lugia. As a result, now, it appears here again. By the way, boss, Mewtwo seems to be injured. Meowth said. Injured? Was it injured by Lugia? That's unscientific. If that's the case, Mewtwo should be recuperating near the Orange Islands. But if it wasn't Lugia, who else was it injured by? Zahu said. By you humans. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Then the stream broke open, and Mewtwo appeared in front of everyone. We humans? Are you talking about Sakaki and the rockets? Zahu said. That's right. After they fought with Lugia, they showed up and tried to capture me. Mewtwo said. Then what? Where are those people? How did you escape? Zahu said. They should all be in Gyarados' stomach now. Mewtwo responded coldly. In Gyarados' stomach? Kona looked surprised and suddenly seemed to remember something and said, a month ago, a tsunami suddenly appeared in the Orange Islands. Then the rocket's actions have been much more low-key recently. That tsunami, you didn't cause it, did you? No, that tsunami was caused by Lugia and the 3 mythical birds, and I don't know what the reason is. Mewtwo said. Lugia also went crazy and provoked 2 mythical beasts at the same time. The rockets are so lucky. Zahu gloated. Can Mewtwo use his superpowers to recreate the scene at that time? Mewtwo didn't answer, but just waved his hand, and the superpowers surged, and the surrounding scenery changed, just like the movement of the stars, and the originally peaceful forest instantly turned into a magnificent sea. Zahu and his men were suspended in the sea. The timid Monini suddenly saw the sea and was startled. He tightly grasped Kajiro's arm, fearing that he would fall down. It was not, until he realized that it was an illusion, that he shouted happily. At this moment, several earth-shaking explosions sounded, and huge waves rolled on the sea. Zahu and his men looked in the direction of the sound, and found that dozens of ships were arranged in a battle formation. Each member wore a black uniform with a Nar on his chest, and looked at the Mewtwo in front of him with a cold face. Half of the members commanded the Pokémon to attack remotely, and the other half controlled modern weapons and continuously launched missiles. Jet flames, 100,000 volts, and flying leaf knives flew together, and missiles, torpedoes, and energy beams danced together. The entire sea surface was turned upside down, and countless water Pokémon were innocently affected in the sea, and lost their precious lives in ignorance. Seeing this, Zahu and others frowned. Mewtwo in the picture seemed to be angered by Team Rocket's behavior. It was suspended in the air proudly, and powerful superpowers burst out from its not-so-strong body. Most of the missiles were controlled by Mewtwo's superpowers before they hit Mewtwo, deviating from the weak direction, and then attacking with energy attacks such as jet flames. Mewtwo's eyes flashed blue light, and his right hand pointed, and those magnetic tools exploded one by one. Then his left hand controlled the sea surface, and waves surged and hit the ships. Even though some attacks hit Mewtwo from time to time, Mewtwo endured them and returned them with double the attacks. One ship after another exploded, and members of Team Rocket fell into the sea, their lives unknown. This attack is too terrifying and too cruel. Meowth sighed. This is Team Rocket. They will do anything to achieve their goals, so they can become so big now. Zahu said. The Rocket Team's top elite, the Sakaki Matrix team, can fight against the top elites of the Alliance. The two new officers, Bixius and Philindo, have the combat power of the king level. Apart from those who are being surrounded, there are also those who need to stay at the headquarters and carry out tasks. These are almost the most mobile forces that Sakaki can bring out. Sakaki really spent a lot of money, Kona said. As one of the four kings of the Alliance, she has the deepest understanding of the power of the Rocket Team. Sending two senior officers is already a light task in a sense. Zahu smiled. In the movie version, Sakaki personally went to the battle. It's a pity that Sakaki didn't go, otherwise, there would probably be one more corpse under the sea this time. Zahu can also be more extravagant. This is still light. There are only a few king level officers in the Rocket Team. Philindo is still at the bottom, but Bixius's strength should not be underestimated. Kona smiled. By the way, I still don't know how many kings there are in the Rocket Team. Zahu said. Currently, there are 7 known ones, not counting Sakaki, and now there are 5. Their strengths vary. The strong ones can compete with me, but most of them are relatively weak. For example, these two, even if they attack together, are not my opponents. Kona said. Sister Kona is awesome. Zahu said. I'm just talking about a simple duel, not a field battle. If the Rockets want something, they will definitely not fight alone, but a king and dozens of elites will send Pokémon together, plus high-tech weapons. If I meet them in the field, I have to hide first. Kona said. Zahu nodded, knowing that Kona meant not to let him be too reckless. The Rockets are not the League trainers who will fight you openly. They will deal with the trainers if they can, and only fight Pokémon if they can't. This is also the reason why the Rockets kings are relatively weak, because for the Rockets, in a real battle, the actual role of a king may not be stronger than dozens of elites. Imagine that dozens of elite trainers surround a king. The king Pokémon can resist, but how can the king trainer guarantee that he will not be killed first? It is much faster and easier to train dozens of elites than to train a superstar. Just as Zahu and the others were talking, they suddenly saw dark clouds in the sky, lightning and thunder, and a loud cry came from the sea. A waterspout blew up on the sea, and Lugia soared into the sky, raising a huge wave of dozens of feet, directly submerging all the Rocket Team ships. Then, 3 more bird calls were heard, and 3 rays of light came from the horizon. Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno. The 3 mythical birds flapped their wings together, and flames, lightning, and cold currents fell at the same time, splitting the ships into pieces. Mewtwo in the picture was stunned for a moment, as if he had not expected Lugia and the others to suddenly come to help him, but he quickly reacted and gushed out his strongest superpowers, rushing into the sea, destroying the survival equipment of all the Rocket Team members. Then, the picture turned, and it returned to the real forest. Only Mewtwo was left floating in front of everyone. Chapter 182 Mewtwo's Request. Your injuries were left at that time, Zahu said. Mewtwo nodded. Then you took the initiative to see me. Do you want me to help you with something? Zahu asked. He thought he knew Mewtwo well. If he hadn't had anything to do, he wouldn't have seen him, and would have just stayed under the stream. Tell me, why did Lugia help me? Mewtwo said. You're just asking this question? Zahu had a strange expression. It was Mewtwo who was not obedient, with this strange train of thought. Mewtwo nodded. There should be 2 reasons. The first is that you are all Pokémon, all living creatures. If you are in trouble, he will help you, but there is actually no need for a reason. Because you are suffering, this is the reason, Zahu said. In Zahu's opinion, the personalities of most Pokémon can be compared to Zyos's. Pokémon are in trouble, Zyos he goes to save them. Does this need a reason? No. Zyos he is also liked by Pokémon for a reason. Mewtwo showed a complicated expression, as if he didn't expect Zahu to have this reason. Second, because that group of people not only hurt you, but also hurt the rest of the Pokémon in the sea. Lugia is the god of the sea. He would protect all the Pokémon in the sea from human harm, so he took action, Zahu said. Mewtwo floated in the air, thinking carefully about Zahu's words, and felt that it seemed to make sense. Okay, now, is there anything else? Zahu said. Yes, help me heal my wounds. Mewtwo said. Don't you know how to heal your wounds? Zahu said. I was created by them, and their attacks were targeted at me. I haven't fully recovered yet, and I need human power. Mewtwo said indifferently. So you're looking for me, right? But how are you going to heal me? If you treat me here, it will take a long time, and it will be much faster if you go to the Pokémon Center. But if you go to the Pokémon Center, it will be a bit conspicuous for you to follow us. Zahu smiled. No, just you alone. Mewtwo said. No problem. Zahu said. He couldn't just ignore the Pokémon when they were in trouble, especially since Mewtwo had helped him in the Orange Islands. He said to Kona and the others, in this case, it seems that everyone will have to spend some time here. So Nasi, Sirian was the first to support him, expressing his loyalty to the boss's instructions. I can help collect medical tools. If necessary, we can go to the town to buy things. Kajiro also said. Although he was not a professional Pokémon doctor, he had taken care of Pokémon in the research institute for so long, so he still had a lot of experience in how to treat Pokémon. That's it. Kona, Sirian, I will be responsible for the treatment. Kajiro will be responsible for buying professional equipment and medicines outside, and Mia will be responsible for cooking and collecting items that can be used here, Zahu said. Looking at Zahu and the others who worked hard for it, Mewtwo's eyes moved slightly, and it was unknown what he was thinking. Okay, Mewtwo, come here. I'm going to diagnose you now. Remember to lie down obediently, and don't move during the treatment, Zahu said. Kona raised her eyebrows. Zahu said it was normal, but why did she sound so strange? Mewtwo didn't think there was anything wrong with Zahu's words. So far, Zahu was the only human that it knew and didn't dislike. The affection between it and Zahu was not enough for it to take the initiative to find Zahu, but since they met, Mewtwo would not be polite to Zahu and lay down in front of Zahu. Zahu took out a set of professional research data equipment from his backpack. Here I have to thank this world for its space folding technology that far surpassed that of the previous life. Apart from Pokémon, the technology of this world is not much different from that of the previous life. They are almost the same, but there are two major differences. On the one hand, the development of atomic bombs is far behind that of the previous life. This thing has not been researched here at all. Perhaps it is because the mythical beasts are already strong enough. If they really explode, they can destroy the world, so there is no development. On the other hand, it is the terrible space technology. The field that could not be broken through in the previous life is very common here. Space folding and space teleportation are both easy. The best proof is the Pokeball, which combines these two technologies in one. What is particularly outrageous is that once the Pokémon registration is completed, even if the trainer does not teleport at the Pokémon Center, as long as you have a 7th Pokémon, the 7th Pokeball will disappear and teleport naturally. Zahu still does not understand why this phenomenon occurs, let alone the principle. Perhaps it is based on the incredible abilities of Pokémon, or perhaps it is based on the spatial abilities of Palkia and Giratina. However, Zahu is not very interested in spatial technology. Anyway, if the other party invented it, he can use it himself. Using professional equipment to scan Mewtwo's whole body, or 3-dimensional virtual image of Mewtwo appeared on the computer in a short time, and then a large amount of data flew in front of him. Treating Mewtwo is a very time-consuming thing, but it is also an opportunity to collect Mewtwo's data openly. If you miss this time, you will miss it. Except when facing a doctor, most people and Pokémon will not let others check their bodies casually. After working as a doctor for so many years, Zahu's research on Pokémon has changed from simply doing it for a living to a hobby, even instinct. So when he encountered Crystal Onyx, he knew that its fighting power was weak and its potential was worrying, but he still subdued it first. And speaking of special things, Crystal Onyx is completely incomparable to Mewtwo. So looking at the data on the computer, Zahu couldn't help but feel excited, especially when he saw the mental power value that was almost off the charts. He was even more surprised. Although he knew that the mythical beasts were all monsters, and Mewtwo's mental power was even more unimaginable, he was still deceived if it was really displayed intuitively with data. Fortunately, he didn't listen to Kajiro and lower the maximum limit to save money. If he had done so at the beginning, the machine would probably explode now. What's wrong? Mewtwo looked at Zahu and said. It's okay, but your brain nerves seem to have been injured. It should be, because you overused your superpowers before, and the physical injuries have not been treated for a long time, so the injuries have worsened. If you want treatment, you will suffer pain, Zahu said. Then hurry up. Mewtwo said. Okay, no problem, don't worry, Zahu said and started to treat Mewtwo, and Mewtwo was always docile, and didn't do anything, even though it was really in pain. In this way, Zahu and a few others stayed, treating Mewtwo while collecting Mewtwo's data. Mewtwo also became familiar with Zahu and a few others. From the initial indifference, he occasionally took the initiative to talk, and even helped Zahu train Pokémon. Maybe it was to repay Zahu for treating it, but Zahu's Pokémon said they couldn't stand its training. Because Mewtwo's training is a battle, except for the 3 mythical birds that can barely compete for a few rounds. The rest of the one-on-one, I don't know how they will die. Especially Golduck, relying on its powerful superpowers. It provoked Mewtwo and competed with Mewtwo in telekinesis. Then, it was almost made into a fool, and now it is hiding in the Pokeball and autistic. Until one morning, Kona received a text message, and this temporary harmonious life was broken. Shiba sent a message that the green fields near Manjin City suddenly crystallized for unknown reasons, and the scope of crystallization is getting larger and larger, and there is even a trend of expanding towards Manjin City. There is a suspected figure of entity appearing on the periphery. Since we are nearby, Shiba asked the 2 of us to investigate. Crystallized? Green fields? Zahu's face changed drastically. Not good. We will rush over now. Rush over? What about Mewtwo? Kona said. She planned to go first, and then wait for Zahu to treat Mewtwo, before everyone else reunited. Other places are okay, except for the Crystal Tower. Can Mewtwo do us a favor and teleport directly to the green fields? Zahu looked at Mewtwo anxiously. Mewtwo glanced at Zahu and the others, thought for a while, and then his whole body flashed with blue light. Then, Zahu, Kona and a group of people, along with all their equipment, disappeared into the forest at the same time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183 Crystal Tower Emperor. Meow. Where is this? Meow. Wasn't I drinking water by the river? Meow Meow suddenly appeared and looked around in astonishment. This seems to be the green field of Manjin City, a famous scenic spot near Manjin City. I wanted to come and see it before, but because of Mewtwo, I didn't make it in time. But why did it become like this? There are strange crystals everywhere, especially where we are. It's very far away from here. How could we get here all of a sudden? Kajiro looked around, puzzled. In front of Mewtwo's instant movement, distance is never a problem. Zahu replied briefly, looking around to judge where he was roughly, but a black shadow flew in front of him. Although it flashed by, the brown hair on the top of the head like a golden crown, and the 2 teams of spike-like wings on the back, all exposed its identity. The messenger of the Phoenix King, the incarnation of fire, the entry. Boss, we have seen the divine beast again. Meow Meow said excitedly. That's not the entry. Zahu shook his head and looked at the footprints left by the entry just now. There were strange crystals on the ground. It's not the entry? How is it possible? They look so similar. Kajiro was surprised. It's indeed not the entry. The entry is the messenger of fire. When he runs on all fours, he will carry fire, but he will never leave such crystal-like traces on the ground. Kona walked over, lowered his head, and looked at the traces left by the entry just now, frowning and said, according to the information, the degree of crystallization of the green field is getting higher and higher, and the scope is getting larger and larger. Could it be that the source of everything is this entity? Kona hadn't come up with an answer yet, and suddenly saw the entity who had just run past at a high speed running back again, but there was a woman on his back. Aunt Hanako. Kona was shocked, and suddenly he understood why Zahu rushed over so anxiously. Articuno, freezing ray. Zahu shouted, and the graceful figure of Articuno immediately appeared in the sky. Its wings fluttered, ice and snow fell, and a strong ice light burst out of its mouth, heading straight for Emperor Yan. Go away. Emperor Yan roared and ran with all four hooves and actually used his huge head to block the freezing ray of Articuno and ran forward with the remaining momentum, looking for death. Articuno, evolve. Zahu's eyes turned fierce and his consciousness merged with that of Articuno. A strange power grew and spread in Articuno. Articuno sang loudly and the extreme ice power condensed on its body, completing the perfect transformation. Divine Bird. The perfect fusion of hearts and minds. Zahu is now Articuno, using his ultimate move in his heart, and the blue light covers Articuno, falling like lightning, easily taking Hanako away from Emperor Yan. What are you doing? Emperor Yan roared, and blazing purple flames spewed out of his mouth, and the crystals around him tended to melt. Water wave. Zahu had an idea. However, Articuno's water wave was only halfway through, and Mewtwo couldn't stand it, and took action first. The powerful superpower burst out, and an energy bomb shot straight at Entei, piercing through the purple flames, and hitting Entei's mouth. Entei was in pain and retreated backwards, looking at Mewtwo with a trace of fear in his eyes. Who are you? Who are you? Mewtwo looked indifferent, but there was still a trace of curiosity in his eyes. Among all the Pokémon it had encountered, this guy in front of it was second only to the Lugia in the Orange Islands. Mewtwo is not an uncultured Pokémon, it is a cultural Pokémon that can improve Pokéballs and has a deep understanding of Pokémon knowledge. The three sacred beasts in the Johto region, Entei, Suicune, and Raikou, were all created by Ho-Oh, and these three will not be its opponents, but this one is a bit strong. That person is Xiaomu's mother, give her back to me. Entei said. Xiaomu's mother? Kajiro looked incredulous. Are you sure? Aunt Hanako only has two sons, the eldest and Xiaozi. Where did the third one come from? Xiaomu said it was, so it was. Entei opened his mouth, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth, which made people shudder. His back arched, and his strong lion body showed terrifying power. Mewtwo's eyes turned blue, and his terrifying power emanated. A wave of missiles hit Entei fiercely. Mewtwo, who has always been a middle school student, has little interest in talking nonsense with Entei. If you can beat it, then talk nonsense. You are looking for death. Entei roared, and a purple light emanated from his body. Countless block-shaped crystal blades suddenly emerged from the whole earth and attacked Mewtwo. Mewtwo looked surprised, as if he had not expected that there would be an attack of this nature. However, Mewtwo, who thought he was the strongest Pokémon in the world, would not be defeated so easily. With a thought, the terrifying telekinesis was activated, and the crystal objects around him were directly shattered. Then the terrifying telekinesis surged, and Mewtwo clenched his right hand, trying to control Entei. Entei tried to scream, but was tightly bound by Mewtwo's telekinesis, and could not escape. In the center of the green field, in a villa, a 5-year-old girl saw this scene and shouted angrily, "Don't bully daddy." As she spoke, the girl stomped her feet angrily, and the crystallization around her immediately became more serious. Under Mewtwo's feet, a crystal blade rose from the ground. Mewtwo moved his telekinesis, and destroyed it again, but it also distracted him. Entei successfully escaped, and blew a mouthful of flames at Mewtwo, and then ran back to the villa without looking back. Mewtwo waved his hand to break the flames. Although he was not damaged, he still showed an unhappy expression when he saw the prey running away. Aren't you going to chase? Zahu said. There are dangerous things there. I feel it will be troublesome if I go over there. Mewtwo said. Even you think it's dangerous. How dangerous is it inside? Kona said in surprise. Unknown totem. Zahu frowned and gave the answer. Pokémon, unknown totem. A mysterious Pokémon that has the ability to sense the hearts of people and Pokémon. It has a total of 28 different appearances, which are said to be ancient texts. Most of them live in strange spaces and other dimensions, and a few live in mysterious ruins. An unknown totem is nothing, basically no attack ability. But when the number reaches a certain standard, it will produce a destructive force, just like now. The reason why the green field is almost completely crystallized is because of the unknown totems in the villa. Even the Entei just now was created by an unknown totem. Shaking his head and not thinking about this matter for the time being, Zahu looked down at Hanako and found that Hanako's eyes were dull and obviously hypnotized, so he immediately looked at Mewtwo. Mewtwo nodded and lifted Hanako's hypnosis. Hanako woke up immediately. She was surprised to see Zahu, and then she asked curiously, "Why are you here?" Zahu told the story selectively, and Hanako finally understood the situation and said, "So it was Mutuo who saved me. Thank you, Meng Meng." As she spoke, Hanako waved to Mutuo to express her gratitude. Mutuo was stunned. Meng Meng? How dare someone call it that? Zahu, Kona, Kajiro, Miawath, and Goran were all confused. Mutuo, Meng Meng? Kajiro and Miawath looked at each other. Sure enough, she is the eldest's mother. She is really strong. Zahu looked at Mutuo worriedly at first, and then found that Mutuo was not angry. Then his expression became strange. What the hell is this? Does my mother really have superpowers? Mom Pikachu at this time, an urgent voice came from a distance, and a yellow light flew quickly. Zahu reached out to catch it, only to find that it was Pikachu. Pikachu also found that it seemed to be fine now, and immediately breathed a sigh of relief, and softened its body cutely. "Pikachu, did you come here to save me?" "Thank you." Hanako pinched Pikachu's tender little cheek. Pikachu called softly and cutely. Zahu smiled, thinking that since the Ninetales left, there seemed to be no cute creatures around him. He could try to catch a few when he had time. At least it would be fun to watch. Turning his head to look to the side, he found that Xiaozi and a few others had also crawled over and waved to them, indicating that they didn't need to be too anxious. Everyone gathered together and found that nothing happened, so they all breathed a sigh of relief. But not long after, the whole ground shook violently, and countless crystal objects pierced the ground, and the range of crystallization expanded rapidly. "Oh no, that guy's angry," Zahu said. "Meng Meng, can you help us go together?" Hanako said to Mutuo. Zahu's heart skipped a beat. "Oh my god, you only called once, can you not call a second time?" However, what shocked Zahu even more was that Mutuo actually nodded and then teleported with Zahu, appearing in the Pokémon Center in the distance. Zahu's expression was subtle. "Is there anything wrong? Am I the only one in the family who didn't cheat?" Chapter 184 The whole story. Why did you suddenly come out? Professor Oak of the Pokémon Center looked at the group of people who suddenly appeared with a surprised face. "It's the teleportation of the psychic type. But teacher, now is not the time to talk about this. It's not very safe here. Let's go first." Zahu just replied, and then he saw that the scope of crystallization continued to expand and spread towards this side. "It seems so. Get in the car and let's go." Professor Oak took a look at the situation and quickly arranged for everyone to get in the car and drive away together. After a long time, they finally arrived at a safe place and everyone sat down to rest together. What is going on? Why is it that the place that girls in the Johto region want to go to the most in legend, a peaceful place full of greenery, a green field, where the wind can soothe the hearts of humans and Pokémon, has become such a terrifying place? Xiaoxia, who finally escaped, looked back with an unbelievable expression on her face. The flowers and green grass all over the sky were all covered with a layer of crystal. In the center was a crystal lotus blooming, and in the center of the crystal lotus stood a blue crystal pine tree tower, just like a crystal world. It was magnificent and full of fantasy. If it was only seen on the video, Xiaoxia would like it very much, but when it becomes a reality, there is only danger. Crystals are beautiful, but they are lifeless. There is still no answer to the cause of this incident, but the crystallization of the green field is related to the disappearance of one of my students, Dr. Xiuli. The place where the crystallization first occurred was his villa. Dr. Oak said. Drive Xiuli's daughter is still in there. Dr. Xiuli's assistant said. Zahu did not speak, but recalled the plot secretly. His judgment was correct. This was the plot in the movie version of Emperor of the Crystal Tower. At the beginning, the movie version and the animation world did not seem to be similar to parallel worlds. If the plot can be sorted out, maybe a solution can be found. Because of the long time, Zahu did not remember it very well at first. He only remembered that Hanako was captured, then Xiaozi went to rescue people, and finally resolved peacefully, but he had forgotten 70% of the details. Now listening to a group of people's stories, he barely recalled 70% of the plot. In fact, it is very simple to say. It is just that a poor kid has extraordinary power, and then does something that is very bad in the eyes of others. The plot is like this. Dr. Oka's student, Zahu's senior, Hanako's friend, Dr. Xiuli, is a professional scholar who specializes in studying unknown totems. But because the unknown totem is too mysterious, he disappeared during an exploration of the ruins. It seems that he was taken to the mysterious world of unknown totems. In short, he didn't know whether he was alive or dead. So Xiaomi, who had no mother since childhood and could only depend on her father, fell into extreme sadness. Perhaps because these unknown totems were exchanged for Dr. Xiuli's life, Xiaomi and those unknown totems had a strange resonance and gained a magical power. Although Xiaomi herself had no consciousness of this power and could not control it. But at this moment, Xiaomi has a terrifying power, strong enough to crystallize the entire green wilderness. Although these crystals are actually just Xiaomi's protection for herself. A child who has lost his parents feels that life is dark and there is no light. He is afraid of the outside world, curled up in a corner, and erected a solid ice for himself. Even if they long for light deep in their hearts, they are afraid of darkness, so they cling to the little microcosm around them, and are unwilling to go out. This is actually a very common thing. For this kind of children, more care is usually needed to let them go out into the world again, and have a new life. But the fucking thing is, that this poor autistic child now has abilities that she can't even control. Now the whole green field is actually the external manifestation of Xiaomi's heart. Her mood fluctuates greatly, and the more she rejects the outside world, the faster the crystallization speed and the larger the range. If her mood no longer fluctuates, she will be happy like this, and the crystallization will stop instead. So the key to solving the problem is to let Xiaomi get out of her inner fear, embrace the light of this world again, and continue her unfinished and long life. At the end of the movie, Xiaomi also fearlessly broke into the crystal tower, and then together with Hanako, used love to influence Xiaomi, untied Xiaomi's heart knot, and let Xiaomi know that the outside world is actually warm, so the inner rejection is gone, and the ice outside is melted. With the help of the Yandi created by the unknown totem just now, the problem was solved. However, it is easy to say, but difficult to implement. This is different from the psychological counseling in reality. In reality, if you fail once, you can start over again and again. The little girl's psychological world cannot harm the real world. But here, he can. If the influence of love fails, they may have to stay in it forever. Zahu, what do you think? Zahu did not take the initiative to speak, but Damu took the initiative to ask him. Zahu hesitated for a moment, but looking at everyone's expectant eyes, he still said his guess. He knew that, if he told this matter, his mother Hanako would most likely get involved for Xiaomi, but if he concealed it, it would make the situation worse, and Xiaomi's future might be forever confined to that dark villa. Dr. Xiuli is very familiar with his mother, and she helped him a lot when he became a doctor. It is not reasonable for him to watch his only daughter fall into mental illness and do nothing. Zahu's guess is very likely that the unknown totem gave Xiaomi some powerful energy, which led to the current situation. So now, we should solve Xiaomi's problem first, so as to solve the crystallization problem of the green wilderness. Professor Oak nodded. If that's the case, it's troublesome. The unknown totem involves a dimensional space that we don't have much information about so far. In this case, the danger level of the villa is at least S level. Kona frowned. The most terrifying thing is not how strong the enemy is, but the unknown. Is it so dangerous? Isn't it enough to make Xiaomi in the villa cheerful? Xiaomi said puzzled. Do you think cheerfulness is such a simple thing? Everyone is like you. The inner world is the most troublesome, because the external performance will be subject to various constraints. Many human behaviors are made after a comprehensive comparison of many extreme emotions, but the heart is different. Someone once did a survey. A couple who had never quarreled had thought about strangling each other more than once in their hearts. Let's talk about you. Ask Xiaoxia and Xiaogang if they have ever thought about beating you to death in their hearts. Zahu said unhappily. Is there? Xiaoxi looked at Xiaoxia and Xiaogang. Xiaoxia looked up at the sky, as if she was admiring the beautiful white clouds in the sky, and Xiaogang looked down at the ground, as if he was observing how many ants there were on the ground. Zyossi seemed to lose all his colors in an instant, and he was sad and stopped talking, lowering his head and drawing circles. But, it's too pitiful for Zyomori to be alone in there, we must let her out. Hanako said. She and Dr. Xayuli have a good relationship, and she can't watch Dr. Xayuli's only offspring hiding in the house for the rest of his life. Save her, we must save her, but how to save her is a very serious problem. She is at the innermost part of the villa, and it's a problem for us to get close to her. The only thing to be thankful for is that Zyomori is just a child. Although she is autistic now, she doesn't want to hurt anyone, so if she goes in, she will usually be driven out. But it involves a different dimension, which is very dangerous. Zahu said. Go through the barrier outside and go inside? Meng, can you use teleportation to move us in, like you did just now? Hanako looked at Muto and said, I can only take you outside, not inside. Muto said, teleportation can move freely in the same 3-dimensional space, but now the villa involves the power of another dimension. If you teleport, it will be greatly affected. With Muto's strength, it can protect itself, but if it takes people with it, it is estimated that everyone, except itself, will be decomposed into particles. Is that so? Then what other ways do we have to get in? Hanako frowned and suddenly said, just now they seem to want to catch me. Otherwise, when they come next time, I will cooperate with them to be caught and taken in, so that I should be able to see Zyomori. Mom, don't do it recklessly. We don't know what's going on inside. If you go in, we can't control it. Zahu said in surprise. He didn't expect his mother to have such an idea. But, besides this method, do you have a safer method? Hanako asked back. But mom, if you go in, our mission will change from saving one person to saving two. Zahu rejected. No, I have the ability to protect myself. I have Duodo and Meng. You give me Meng's Pokeball and I'll take both Pokeballs in. That's all. Hanako said. The Duodo she mentioned was Gardevoir. But Muto is not my Pokemon. Zahu said. Isn't it? Then Meng, can you enter the Pokeball temporarily? When this is over, we can break the Pokeball. Hanako looked at Muto, whose face changed slightly, and stared at Hanako. Finally, he nodded for some unknown reason. Zahu's eyes widened. What are you doing? Can anyone tell me why Muto is so cooperative this time? I've been brushing up his favorability for almost a year, but I haven't let him enter the Pokeball. Maybe Zahu's emotions were too obvious. Muto looked at Zahu more, but still looked at Hanako. Actually, Zahu didn't know that there were many reasons why Hanako had so much favorability right after she came. First of all, Hanako did have mysterious attraction to psychic Pokémon. Secondly, Hanako was his mother, and a lot of the favorability he had gained was shared with Hanako. Finally, and most importantly, Hanako looked a bit like the failed replica when Muto was making its embryo, which was the little girl who was Muto's only friend when he was a child. So, this was the reason why Muto was willing. As for Zahu, he would talk about it after he changed his sex. Of course, Muto was not stupid. It also calculated that Hanako wanted to make full use of it, but it didn't care because it could just smash the Pokeball. With its strength, the Pokeball couldn't trap it at all. Otherwise, why would Sakaki have to go through so much trouble? Okay, Meng agreed. We'll do it together. Zahu, you don't have any objections now, right? Hanako said with an excited smile. Chapter 185, Deciphering the Crystal. Is this really okay? At night, Zahu looked at the towering villa in the middle of the green field with a worried expression in his eyes. He was still worried about Hanako's plan, but who would have thought that Hanako would act without asking for permission, and when Entei came over at night, she was taken away on her own initiative. Don't worry too much, with Muto and Gardevoir, Aunt Hanako will have no problem protecting herself. Kona comforted her from the side. That's what you say, but who can say for sure about things involving the other dimension? Psychic's professional skills are not suitable. If it was replaced by Dialga and Giratina, it would be about the same. Zahu's nervous expression did not diminish, and he sighed. You say, it would be great if it was Satoshi who went in. What's wrong with Satoshi? Kona asked curiously. Would Satoshi be able to turn danger into safety? Or is it that a creature like my brother can be lost if he is lost? No. If it was Zyossi who acted on his own, I could scold him to vent my anger, and then beat him up after he came back, but it's my mother who's going in, and I don't even have the ability to beat her up. Zahu gritted his teeth and said, "You say, how about I go in now? I'm still nervous outside." No, Aunt Hanako knows Xiaomi, so if she goes in, she can appease Xiaomi to the greatest extent, but if you go in, it's likely to backfire, and then Xiaomi will get angry, and the situation will only get worse. Kona objected. She understood Zahu's emotions. However, the method proposed by Hanako is indeed the best at present. The problem can be solved with the least manpower and material resources, and it can also ensure that Xiaomi in the villa will not be harmed. Zahu nodded heavily and didn't say much, although he still couldn't let it go. I didn't feel it before, but I've been feeling it more and more recently. I'm so tired. There are 2 children in the same family. Trust auntie, trust Mutuo. If it's not solved before dawn, I'll accompany you to break in. Kona said solemnly. Yes. Zahu nodded. Zyossi on the side was also worried, and he was really heartless. He wanted to rush over, but he was afraid of accidents. This night was a bit long for everyone. Until dawn, the sky was slightly bright, and the strange crystals in the center of the green field suddenly shook violently, and the crystallized objects around them suddenly scattered and turned into their original appearance. Seeing this, Zahu and his friends breathed a sigh of relief and smiled excitedly. The thing was successful. A group of people were about to drive to the central villa. Hanako and his friends suddenly appeared, and there was a 5-year-old girl next to them. She should be Xiaomi, the daughter of Dr. Xiuli. Xiaomi, this is the outside world. It's very warm. That's Brother Zahu, Brother Xiaozi. Hanako gently introduced Xiaomi to Zahu and his friends, and Zahu and his friends also cooperated with gentle smiles. The caring Pikachu volunteered to run over, tilting his little head cutely, calling Pika Pika. Xiaomi hid behind Hanako at first, and only after feeling Pikachu's kindness did she bravely reach out to Pikachu. Pikachu took the initiative to rub his round cheek against her. Xiaomi was like a frightened mouse, and she retracted her hand for a moment, but soon she boldly put her hand over again, and felt a wonderful touch in her hand, which made her even happier. Pikachu played with her happily. Since taking care of TGP, it has developed the attribute of a babysitter. Now it is the same when taking care of Xiaomi, giving her the first warmth after contacting the outside world. Seeing this scene, Zahu and the others all showed a relieved smile on their faces. No matter what, this matter was finally resolved satisfactorily, and this poor little girl can really embrace the light outside. However, when Zahu saw the slightly doting expression on Mutuo's face, he couldn't help but show a little curiosity on his face. This adventure seemed to have changed not only the little girl Xiaomi, but also Mutuo, whose brain circuits have always been abnormal. Mutuo keenly felt the change in Zahu's expression and quickly controlled his expression. However, before Zahu could say anything, he suddenly found that Professor Oak poked him secretly. Zahu understood and left with him. "Teacher, what's wrong?" Zahu asked curiously. "Zahu, since you left, you haven't sent a Pokémon back for me to study," Professor Oak said. "Didn't I send Jigglypuff back? And Miltank?" Zahu said. "But every time I want to study, Jigglypuff sings and makes me faint. Then Miltank is milked by your mother. How can there be any extra to study?" Professor Oak said depressedly. "Then what?" Zahu asked. "Just to find him for this? So, you are very familiar with the Pokémon called Mutuo?" Professor Oak rubbed his hands rarely, showing an embarrassed expression. "Teacher, please go away. Mutuo is not my Pokémon, but my friend. It has freedom," Zahu said. "But this does not conflict with my research." "Who am I? Don't you know? It's just pure research, and will not harm it. I'm just curious. It seems a bit like an extinct Pokémon," Professor Oak said. "Extinct Pokémon? How is that possible?" "Teacher, Mutuo is an artificial Pokémon created by Team Rocket. It's brand new," Zahu said with a strange expression. "Oh, so Mutuo is the Mutuo that made such a big fuss." Professor Oak was suddenly enlightened, then curious. "But an ancient Pokémon, there really were Pokémon that looked like Mutuo, like on the gate of Zenghu Lighthouse. I remember there seemed to be the image of that Pokémon." "The gate of Zenghu Lighthouse?" Zahu was stunned. It seemed like it really existed. Are you telling the truth? At this moment, Mewtwo suddenly moved over by itself, looking at Professor Oak with blue eyes flashing. It originally thought that it was just a simple replica made by Dream Eyelashes, but according to what Professor Oak said, its origin seemed a bit magical. Yes, here are pictures. Professor Oak took out his research machine and showed some information to Mewtwo, especially a stone carving picture. Although it was very funny and silly, but it was obviously Mewtwo. Could it be that my existence is not just made? Mewtwo became more confused, but his heart was more excited. Zahu frowned when he heard this. This is not right. Mewtwo should be a man-made Pokémon, and it has no past. No, Mewtwo can Mega Evolve, and Mega Evolution requires stones. Those Mega Evolution stones are naturally generated, not man-made. In theory, a new Mega Evolution stone will not be created because of a man-made Pokémon. So it is possible that Mewtwo had traces of existence in the past. Zahu thought about it, shook his head violently, and overturned his own conclusion. This is an animation, not a pure game. In the theatrical version, Mewtwo and Latias Mega evolved without using Mega Evolution stones. However, the later Mewtwo does not seem to have much reference value. When Mewtwo first appeared, it was full of style. Sakaki, a big man who has seen the world, personally praised the world's #1 Pokémon. In the first theatrical version, before the human appeared, he could control the storm with one hand, and he was full of aura. But in the later Mega Evolution theatrical version, before the Mega Evolution, it was basically a waste, and after the Mega Evolution, it was actually a waste. It is not as cool as before. How about doing research with me? I promise that you won't get hurt. Professor Oak invited Mewtwo seriously. Yes, Meng Meng, come with me, and accompanies Iomi and Dordo. Hanako invited. If that's the case, it might be really good. After all, those Pokémon you copied are also in the Oak Research Institute. You are like their parents, but you haven't taken care of them until now. Zahu thought about it and persuaded. Compared to wandering around outside, it is indeed safer and more comfortable to follow Professor Oak. Mewtwo looked at Hanako, Xiaomi, and Zahu, with a strange expression on his face. After thinking for a while, he said to Professor Oak, "Are you sure that I won't be harassed and can leave if you want?" "No problem. I can guarantee that no one can hurt you." The original intention of the Pokémon League was to achieve common peace between humans and Pokémon, so that children all over the world who want to become trainers can become trainers, and all Pokémon who want peace can have peace. Professor Oak said seriously. "Okay." Mewtwo nodded, as if compromising, and then went straight into the Pokéball on Hanako's waist. Chapter 186 Pokémon League History. Zahu, it's really great that you came this time. Professor Oak patted Zahu's shoulder excitedly, feeling that the most correct thing he had done in his life was to accept Zahu as a student, and to have a mythical beast like Mewtwo to study. Unexpected. I didn't expect Mewtwo to agree, but teacher, Mewtwo is a bit lonely, seemingly aloof, but actually more middle school, even pure, can't be deceived. If you want to study it, you really have to protect it. It is a bit like me before, although it is powerful, but they are both children. Zahu said cautiously. Don't worry about this, what I said before, I'm not lying to Mewtwo. Why do you think the Pokémon League was founded? Professor Oak looked at Zahu and said. This, I really don't know. Zahu said. Well, with your current strength, you are also qualified to understand these things. Have you heard of Ultra Beasts? Professor Oak said. In the Alola region, special Pokémon that occasionally appear through the Ultra Hole live in another world. Zahu said. The main storyline of the Alola region. You actually know that? Professor Oak was surprised at first, then laughed. You have always known a lot of things, but you keep them to yourself. Okay, let's get back to the point. In fact, a long time ago, the Pokémon League did not exist. At that time, the system that dominated the world was the country, and the one with the greatest power was the Emperor and King. Pokémon was not something that everyone has now. Only a few nobles could own it, and the way they controlled it was not with Pokéballs, but with some props to enslave Pokémon. Slavery? Zahu frowned slightly. The history of this world is very mysterious. Even with Zahu's current identity as a professor of the League, there is still a lot of information that cannot be found. It is not known whether the League protects it, or even the League itself does not know. But when it comes to slavery, Zahu remembered some plots in the Pokémon animation. There were 2 relics related to ancient emperors. One was when Musashi wore a golden mask of an unknown queen, and he could directly command and control those Pokémon that had not been conquered. The other time was when Zyozzy and Shende met for the first time. Zyozzy was courting death and released the evil thoughts of an ancient emperor. The emperor's attitude towards Pokémon was also enslavement. Yes, it was slavery. Cruel and ruthless. So after who knows how many years, a riot finally broke out. The battle between Pokémon and humans, or to be more precise, the enslaved Pokémon broke free from control, and then a complete war broke out. Among them were the super ancient Pokémon you saw last time. That battle was very fierce, and all the ancient civilizations were directly destroyed. The specific detailed information has not yet been discovered by the Alliance. Professor Oak said. Is that so? Then what does this have to do with the Ultra Beasts and the Alliance? Zahu asked curiously. Don't be impatient, listen to me. The civilization war at that time lasted for a long time. When it ended, all the countries basically disappeared. Humans lost their organization and were in chaos. The land was also broken. Some people even speculated that the continents today were formed because of the battle. That era should be the most ignorant era since human records began. Professor Oak said slowly, with a sigh on his face. At his age, talking about such stories from the past always feels like time is flowing. That was how his teacher told him this history. Then, after who knows how many years, human society gradually stabilized, various systems began to be re-established, and the relationship between humans and Pokémon was barely eased. However, at this time, the Ultra Beasts appeared. They continued to destroy the world and directly threatened the lives of humans and Pokémon. So under external pressure, the 2 sides joined forces again. Professor Oak said, Ultimate Beasts destroy the world? Are they so fierce? Zahu said. How could he remember that the Ultra Beasts in the animation were all funny? They almost never caused any trouble. The explosive mosquito was doing bodybuilding all day, but when it was posing, it was subdued and sent back. Pheromone was robbing Z crystals everywhere. In the end, it was knocked out by the Alola sister, the best sister, with one punch, and sent back to the Ultra Cave. It didn't hurt anyone in the process, and when it left, it stuck out its tongue to be cute. Yes, it's very dangerous. Although they can be said to be Pokémon, they can't be regarded as ordinary Pokémon at all. Fortunately, the Ultra Caves were almost destroyed that year, and now they may appear in the Alola region. Professor Oak said. Oh. Zahu nodded, and thought hard, and found that he was thinking too simply. In one episode, Zyozzy traveled through a parallel world. In that world, an island was completely destroyed by an Ultra Beast, and all humans and Pokémon evacuated. It didn't happen to Zyozzy, just because Zyozzy was there, and he was more active in chasing Ultra Beasts. In addition, this year, who knows how many years ago, maybe the Ultra Beasts at that time were more fierce. Like Groudon, it looks very big. But after seeing the 4 ultra ancient Pokémon of super ancient Jigglypuff, you will find that in ancient times, the size of Groudon was the size of normal Pokémon at that time. In that era, humans were about to perish, and any selfishness gradually disappeared. Everyone was thinking about how to survive, so countless thoughts burst out, thinking about self-rescue. Professor Oak's expression gradually became serious, as if he had returned to that era in the past. Zahu listened more and more seriously, and countless thoughts burst out. This should be similar to the late King Dynasty, when countless ideas of saving the country emerged one after another, thinking about surviving. There were so many ideas at the time, so many that I can't even remember them all, but that one in the end was the idea proposed by Arceus, that humans and Pokémon should live in harmony and seek common ground while reserving differences. Professor Oak said with respect on his face. Arceus? Zahu raised his eyebrows. Why don't you call him Arceus? Yes, the initiator, founder, and first generation president of the Pokémon League set the purpose that continues to this day. The Pokémon League is neither a family nor a company, but an academy. It was not established for its own strength, but for the survival of all mankind. At that time, the League was once called a holy place. Professor Oak smiled. It can continue the survival of mankind, so it is not wrong to call it a holy place. Zahu said. That's why the greatness of Senior Altus was highlighted. At that time, he relied on his extraordinary abilities to become partners with the mythical beasts such as Ho-Oh, Lugia, Mew, and Latius, and protected the world all the way. In the end, he even brought Arceus with him to drive all the Ultra Beasts back to another world. We call the mythical beasts such as the 3 mythical birds and Lugia gods, not only because they have powerful strength, but more because they have been protecting humans in the past, present, and even in the future, so they are gods. Professor Oak said. I understand. Zahu nodded, but for some reason he had a strange idea in his mind. If a person can become friends with so many mythical beasts at the same time to save the world, how about Zyos? In addition, is the world going to be invaded again? In fact, after all the Ultra Beasts were driven out, Altus proposed to disband the Alliance because the crisis was over, and the Alliance no longer needed the power to command all humans. But because the people at that time were accustomed to accepting the guidance of the Alliance and did not trust any other country, the Alliance still existed with the unanimous consent of everyone and became the highest authority today. At the beginning of its establishment, there was a purpose. First, every child who is 10 years old can get a Pokémon, as long as he is willing, and there are no longer any restrictions as before. This is also something that was almost certain during the war, because only by being with Pokémon from an early age can the power of Pokémon be better exerted, and in times of war, those children are not only the power of the future, but also the power of the present. Second, people and Pokémon live in harmony and never allow tragedies like the previous civilization war to happen again, leading to the demise of human civilization. Third, respect the freedom of every trainer. The Alliance trains trainers, but does not restrict them, but only protects them, just like an academy, educating students without reservation, and after students graduate, they will not interfere with their stay or departure, which is why there is a current prosperity. Chapter 187 Kona, I'm in a difficult situation. So what the teacher meant was that Mewtwo would live a safe life as a Pokémon. Zahu said. Yes. To be fair, a long time has passed, and the League has indeed undergone many changes. Some of them are due to practical considerations, such as the high cost of taking care of Pokémon, so the big 3 have to collect more taxes. Although these are somewhat helpless, there is nothing they can do, and they have also improved many of the League's systems. But some people have also changed, like the Phoenix King in Yuansu City, who is no longer alive, because of human greed. There are also countless underground organizations that have been established with various ambitions, and many people in the League have colluded with them, killing many Pokémon and trainers, like Team Rocket. Perhaps technology has given them courage, making them feel that they no longer need to maintain friendly relations with Pokémon and can conquer and enslave them again. Professor Oak said with a solemn expression on his face. Zahu said nothing, but he knew that what Professor Oak said was right. Human technology has really developed to a terrifying level. The mythical beasts are arrogant and powerful, but the strongest underground organization in almost every region can capture the mythical beasts. Team Rocket used Mew's eyelash to create Mewtwo, Team Aqua captured Kyogre, Team Magma captured Groudon, and Team Galactic captured Dialga and Palkia, 2 mythical beasts that control time and space at once. Even a single collector could capture the 3 mythical birds and threaten Lugia. As the most powerful alliance right now, would they not have the power to fight against the mythical beasts? Is it possible? However, having the courage does not mean they have the qualifications. Professor Oak suddenly said with a domineering look, humanity must never repeat the tragedy of the War of Civilizations. The current alliance may have deteriorated a little, but its roots have not changed. What it wants to do is to make harmonious progress between humans and Pokémon. No one can criticize anything that is factually correct, even if it is politically incorrect in the eyes of some people. Right is right, wrong is wrong. The purpose of the alliance is to maintain a good balance between humans and Pokémon, and to dig deeper, to protect humans and Pokémon. It is not a tool for ambitious people to make profits. As long as old guys like me and Amaranki are not dead, the Alliance will never become a tool for those ambitious people to cultivate their own people. Organizations like Team Rocket can only be underground for a lifetime. Teacher is awesome. Zahu had a fanboy expression on his face. He had known the teacher for so many years, but this was the first time he saw the teacher with such a domineering expression. Don't flatter me. Although I don't admit that I'm old, I'm indeed an old guy, so I will rely on you in the future. Professor Oak said. Rely on me? Zahu was stunned. Yes, otherwise why do you think I told you so much? We are old after all, and we need fresh blood. You, Xiaomao, and Xiaozi are all my favorites. The future depends on you, especially you, the trainer of the legendary beast. Go in the direction of Altis. It just so happens that your names all have the word ZHI in them. Professor Oak suddenly showed a naughty smile and said, Teacher, I'm still young and can't bear it. Zahu said with a sad face. You can do it. No one believes in you more than me, and even if I don't say it, won't you do it in the future? Professor Oak said proudly. Teacher, you bully children. Zahu complained. Don't act cute. It doesn't work with me. If you really act like a child, go and play now. Professor Oak smiled, and after that, he played with Xiaozi and his group like an old naughty boy. The restored green field is now full of vitality and beautiful. Everyone is having a lot of fun. Hanako also put down the heirs of an elder and directly let Gardevoir teleport in various ways. The matter is finally resolved. Let's go over and play. Kona smiled at Zahu. She was worried for a long time last night. Now that everything is finally resolved, she is very happy. Xiaoma's matter is temporarily resolved, but I have something else to do. The teacher asked me to plead for the people. Zahu smiled bitterly. Kona was puzzled at first, but soon reacted and smiled. Don't worry, in fact, the alliance is generally very harmonious. Although some are selfish, they are generally for the public. For example, although Do is the champion, he has not sought much personal gain for the Yulan family. I hope so, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, it's still far away. Zahu said. That's right. Now you should think about how to subdue the Lugia that I haven't seen yet. Kona said. I have prepared almost everything I should prepare, and I can't prepare much for the rest. Zahu said. The Lugia in the Whirlpool Islands is a mother and son, and they live a good life. His words may not be able to convince the mother Lugia. In this case, the probability of success is not very high. Of course, Zahu can use force to subdue it by force. But this is contrary to Zahu's usual style. Not forcing Pokémon is one of the principles of a trainer. Besides, this is not a game. The mother and son have their own will. Even if you force them to be captured, they can still escape. You can't tie up two Pokémon and let them escape once and fight once, right? How is this different from Team Rocket? So although I'm looking forward to it, I have to go with the flow. Speaking of the legendary beasts, Zahu's eyes suddenly fixed on the Pokeball on Hanako's waist in front of him, and said with a slight tremor, Sister Kona, Mewtwo is now in my mother's Pokeball, so theoretically, my mother captured Mewtwo, and became a legendary beast trainer, right? It seems. That's right. Kona only then reacted. Although Hanako's trainer level is very low, now it is said that she has indeed captured Mewtwo. In this case, Hanako can become a top or even champion trainer. Because even if Hanako only has this one, she can participate in the top competition 1 against 3. Looking at Xiaozi and Hanako playing happily in front of him, Zahu shook his head with a little despair and said, what should I do? It's so difficult for me. There are 3 people in the family, and except for me, the 2 begin small lot cheating. I'm an ordinary person with so much pressure. He worked hard for almost a year to gain favorability, but in the end, his mother abducted Mewtwo, just because she was favored. Next, Lugia will not be abducted by Xiaozi as well, right? No, absolutely not. That is Xiaozi, and has nothing to do with the legendary beast trainer. Ordinary person? Kona paused and looked up and down at Zahu. She really wanted to say to Zahu, you can easily capture the 3 legendary birds and even make Articuno super evolve. Who gave you the courage to say such a shameless thing, that you are an ordinary person? However, Kona soon found that it was even more difficult for her. What kind of people will be in her future in-laws? If there is a conflict between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law, will I be beaten to death by Mewtwo? Chapter 188 Lucario Training. Lucario, Power Up Punch. At the command, Lucario's right fist shone brightly, hitting the opposite Haoli in the chest, knocking it to the ground. Your Lucario is really amazing. It has won 10 consecutive games. Haoli's trainer took back Haoli and looked at Zahu with amazement. Zahu smiled slightly, took back Lucario, and after playing in the green field for a few days, they went their separate ways and did their own things. Zahu continued his journey and happened to see a gathering of fighting Pokémon here. Zahu sent Lucario to fight. Along the way, Zahu focused on training Lucario, because among the Pokémon in Zahu's hands, Lucario had the most obvious will to become stronger. It was neither as naughty as Haunter nor as lazy as Haxorus, hiding its shortcomings every day. Let's go. The level of the trainers here is a certain gap with yours. If you stay, you will just bully them. Kona said. Okay. Zahu nodded. It's fun to bully newbies occasionally, but it's boring if you do it too much. I remember there's a fighting Pokémon gym of the Genzo style in front of here. Do you want to try it? Kona said. Are you sure it's a gym? Not a convention? Zahu said. Of course not, it's a gym. Why are you asking? Kona said. I'm afraid I'll go empty-handed again. Zahu shrugged. After leaving the green wilderness, he passed by a natural park that held an insect catching contest every year. He originally planned to participate, but the organizer told him that he would have to wait for a few days before he could participate. Then Zahu calculated the distance and found that the contest would only start when Zyozzy arrived, so he was in despair. In short, no matter what kind of celebration it is, it won't start unless Zyozzy arrives. Zahu and his friends followed the navigation instructions, passed through a forest, and finally arrived at a gym. As soon as they walked in, they found a girl demonstrating kicking skills with a Coplin, and a group of students were learning obediently, looking quite good. After just a few more glances, Zahu couldn't help but frown slightly, and found that the attacking moves of this Coplin, although gorgeous, were flashy and impractical. Such a level was not as good as the previous roadside trainer. Excuse me, why are you here? Just when Zahu wanted to leave, the girl stopped Zahu and a few others. I'm Zahu. I know there is a fighting type Pokémon gym here, so I came to visit. Being stopped, Zahu had to stop and answered politely. I came to visit. The girl nodded, not taking it too seriously. There are still many people visiting here every day. But when she saw Kona next to Zahu, she suddenly said with surprise, You are the King Kona. One of the 4 heavenly kings of Kanto. Yes. Are you the owner of this gym? Kona said politely, wondering in her heart. She remembered that, when she first came here, the level of this gym was pretty good. No, my name is Chigusa, and I'm the granddaughter of the owner of this dojo. Are you here to teach us? Chigusa said, and from her admiring tone, she seemed to be a fan of Kona. I'm not good at fighting, and there's nothing to teach. I just accompanied Zahu to your dojo to find an opponent to train with. Kona replied, and the doubts in his heart were resolved. He is Master Kona's friend, so I will make an exception and let him come to visit, and I will fight him directly. Chigusa said confidently. You make an exception and fight me? Zahu raised his eyebrows. This is usually said by the strong to the weak, but where does your confidence come from? Just your Kaporan? Of course, my Kaporan is very strong. Let's fight. You should also have a fighting Pokémon. Chigusa said. Yes, then come on. Zahu said, since the other party wants to fight, he naturally doesn't mind. Okay, Kaporan, show your strength in front of Master Kona. Chigusa said excitedly. Lucario, let's practice. Zahu said calmly. Coppola, one of the 3 evolutions of Fearless, is one of the more common fighting Pokémon. Is it Lucario? After the evolution, it has the Steel attribute, which is restrained by the fighting type, which is very beneficial to us. Coppola, first use a beautiful whirlwind kick. Chigusa looked at Zahu's Lucario and said excitedly. Coppola immediately kicked Lucario. Lucario, block it. Zahu said. Hearing this, Lucario raised his right hand lightly and blocked Coppola's kick expressionlessly. Coppola, continue to attack and show your gorgeous offensive moves. Chigusa continued. Coppola kicked quickly with both legs, one leg faster than the other, but Lucario stood in place, protecting his left and right hands, and easily blocked all the attacks. No, the posture and rhythm are messed up. Coppola, spin at high speed, and reorganize the situation, Chigusa said. Upon hearing this, Coppola immediately stood upside down, using the bump on the top of its head as a fulcrum. The whole Pokémon spun rapidly like a spinning top, attacking Lucario's body. Lucario's defense was flawed for a while, and it was hit several times. Yes, that's it. It's beautiful enough. See, isn't it beautiful enough? Chigusa said excitedly, and glanced at Kona while speaking. Kona shook her head slightly. This girl doesn't look like a fighting trainer of the Genzo Ryu, but is suitable for training with Mikali. Miss, if I remember correctly, the Genzo Ryu is a fighting style, not a style for performing good-looking performances. You are far from it. Zahu shook his head and said. In general, Chigusa's Coppola is tangible but soulless, flashy, and impractical. Lucario was hit by several kicks, but it didn't affect him at all. Who said that? My fighting power is also very strong. Chigusa refuted fiercely. Really? Lucario, you've had enough fun. Let's beat him down with the enhanced punch. Zahu said undeniably. Lucario suddenly moved, still as a virgin, swift as a rabbit. These 8 words well reflected him. His right fist shone, and in an instant, it exploded and hit the high-speed spinning Coppola, who flew out directly and fell heavily to the ground, revealing 2 circles of eyes. How could it be so fast? Chigusa was shocked, looking at his Coppola in a daze, as if he couldn't believe that he was so weak. Because your Coppola is poorly trained. At this time, an old man came out from the side and scolded him sternly. Grandpa. Chigusa looked at the old man who came out and lowered his head in shame. The old man didn't look at Chigusa, but said to Zahu, "Thank you, sir. You have educated our useless granddaughter. I don't deserve it." Zahu smiled, but wondered in his heart. He promised his granddaughter, but this grandfather didn't come out to get back, but thanked himself. What kind of thing is this? So, if you are willing, can you stay and inherit my position as the trainer of our dojo? The old man continued to say shocking things. Ah. Zahu was stunned. Are you kidding me? Let's not talk about whether I'm willing or not. Just say that you are so confident to hand over the dojo to me, who you just met. Grandpa, what do you mean? Do you look down on me so much? Chigusa said dissatisfiedly. Otherwise, with your current fighting ability, which is flashy and unrealistic, how can you inherit my dojo? The fighting technique of the Genzo school is a fighting school, not a flashy performance. What's the point of looking good? This gentleman defeated you in one go. This is real strength. The old man said sternly. Speaking of strength, Chigusa was speechless. He was really killed in seconds just now. Thinking of this, Chigusa suddenly bowed to Zahu and said, "Mr. Zahu, can you be my master?" Master? Zahu's expression was stunned. You two, grandfather and grandson, have different personalities. But can you consider my idea a little? As a mortal, I can't keep up with your pace. Chapter 189, Genzo Ryu's fighting technique. Yes, master, can you accept me as your disciple? Chigusa said seriously. No. Zahu refused without thinking. I'm practicing now, so I'm not qualified to accept disciples. And in terms of fighting, I'm just average. At most I have learned a little from Shiba. Shiba? Are you talking about Shiba, the king of fighting among the 4 heavenly kings? Chigusa raised her head and looked at Zahu with admiration. Suddenly, she felt that Zahu was so powerful, and the 4 heavenly kings knew 2 of them. She thought, this master must be her disciple. It's him. If you really want to learn fighting, why don't you go find him? He has always had the habit of accepting disciples, but he wants to test them. I will give you a letter of introduction. For my sake, he will give you the qualification to be tested. You go and try and see if you can pass it. Zahu said. Thank you, Mr. Zahu. Chigusa said with gratitude. Okay, in that case, I'll leave first. Zahu shook his head and said, really, what's the big deal? Obviously, they came here to train, but Lucario's strength did not improve, but it became a problem. Fortunately, they could pass it on to Ziba. No, Mr. Zahu, thank you for helping us a lot. I finally realized the weakness of my useless granddaughter, and you recommended her to Master Ziba. We can't give you nothing in return. The fighting skills of our Genzo Ryu dojo are well known. The gym leader suddenly said. So, do you want to fight me? Zahu's eyes showed a hint of desire. Although Chigusa's strength is not very good, this old man must have good abilities as a gym leader. Okay, Guri, come on stage, show your strength to your heart's content, and repay Mr. Zahu. The gym leader said excitedly. Guri raised his fists and posed in a bodybuilding posture, showing extraordinary momentum. Seeing this scene, Zahu's eyebrows couldn't help but twist together. It's not that there is anything wrong with Guri's posture, but this posture is usually done by Godok, so now seeing this posture, Zahu's head hurts. Horiki, let's do a hell roll, to show our gratitude to Mr. Zahu. The old man in the dojo opened his arms excitedly and leaned back. Like his master, Horiki also posed in a perfect excited posture. However, just as this posture was set, a crisp sound appeared in everyone's ears. Before Zahu could react, the old man in the dojo and Horiki both covered their waists with one hand and fell to the ground with a look of pain on their faces. Ouch. Sorry, Mr. Zahu, my waist is sprained. Sprained waist? Zahu's facial expression was stiff. He found that, since entering this dojo, he could no longer control his facial expression. Is his brain really broken today? He actually came to this dojo. Is this a fighting dojo or a funny dojo? Resisting the feeling of collapse, Zahu and others helped the old man into the inner room. Sorry, Mr. Zahu, I'm old and useless, but our Genzo Ryu's fighting skills are still very strong. The old man said. Yeah. Zahu nodded in agreement. As long as you are happy. Otherwise, if I say you can't do it, you have to prove it to me, and then completely break your waist. I can't afford to pay for it. As if he saw Zahu's perfunctory attitude, the old man took out a CD from a box on the side, played a video and said, here is a video, you can take a look. Zahu's eyes were immediately moved to the video, and he found that in the video, a boy who looked about the old man appeared in a duel field, and then commanded a Gali and a Cheoli King to fight. All kinds of fighting Pokémon were used, and the degree of control was extremely good. Is this what you and Gali looked like when you were young? Zahu said. Yes, I once won the championship in the fighting competition. The old man proudly talked about his past achievements, but he couldn't help getting excited while talking, and his waist hurt again. He touched his waist and sighed. It's a pity that time is not forgiving. Our Genzo Ryu fighting skills are very strong, but if you don't control your body well, you will leave sequelae. Like me, Mr. Zahu, you can refer to it. If you want to study the fighting methods, I can also provide theoretical guidance on paper. Thank you very much, senior. Zahu said. Judging from the video and the trophies placed here, Genzo Ryu's fighting skills are indeed extraordinary. As for the current back sprain, it may be because he fought too much when he was young. Okay, here are detailed training methods that can fully tap the potential of a fighting Pokémon, as well as suitable moves. The old man took out a book and said, thank you, senior. Zahu took the book and said, if you want to train, you can do it in the dojo. There are many professional Pokémon contact facilities inside. Chigusa said, yes, if Mr. Zahu doesn't mind, you can stay here for a while and practice with Chigusa. The old man said, then I'll trouble you, senior. In the next few days, Zahu and a few others stayed in the dojo to train. Zahu and Chigusa fought every day, from morning to night, basically without interruption. On this day, they were still fighting. Kaporan, use triple kick. Chigusa shouted with all her strength, and Kaporan suddenly turned sideways and used triple spinning kicks at Lucario in succession. Zahu's face changed slightly. In the past few days of fighting, his and Lucario's strength can be said to be improving every moment, but if we talk about the speed of improvement, Chigusa is still faster. After all, it is much more difficult to improve from 10 points to 20 points than from 80 points to 90 points. Up, down. Zahu distinguished Kaporan's two attacks in succession, and Lucario easily dodged under his command, but the third kick was a little difficult to distinguish. Chigusa's strength has improved more than he thought. With his eyes fixed on the battle between Coppola and Shahu, his blood began to surge, and his will began to merge with Lucario's. At the moment, when Coppola's final attack was about to strike, Chahu suddenly caught the trajectory of that moment and shouted, "It's down there, Lucario, jump up, and use the enhanced punch." Lucario suddenly changed, jumped up at the moment of the attack, dodged Coppola's kick, and then punched Coppola in the head, knocking Coppola unconscious. Mr. Chahu's Lucario is still amazing, and he is worthy of being Mr. Chahu. Chigusa took back Coppola and said, "You have grown very quickly. If you go to Shiba in your current state, Shiba should not be stingy with your guidance." Chahu said, "So Mr. Chahu, are you leaving?" Chigusa said, but she heard the implication of Chahu's words. "Yes, I have been here long enough, it's time to go." Chahu said, "In the past few days, Lucario has benefited a lot here, and his strength has been improved again. Now with the weight, he has the strength he had before without the weight. If he takes off the weight, his strength will be further improved. But since his strength has reached this point, it will be difficult to improve further. As I said, it is easy to jump from 50 points to 60 points, but it is difficult to jump from 80 points to 90 points. Now that the stage of rapid improvement has passed, it will depend on hard work. It doesn't matter whether he is in the gym or not." "Thank you for your teaching, Mr. Chahu." Chigusa bowed seriously. "We are just helping each other. Don't be so polite. I hope that, when we meet next time, you can inherit the gym." Chahu said. "Okay, when Mr. Chahu plays a game, I will also go to watch." Chigusa said. Chahu nodded, then came out, and said goodbye to Grandpa Chigusa, and then walked towards Yuansu City. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, The Sudden Appearance of the Tute Turtle. How far is it from Anew City? I feel like the gyms in Johto are much farther away than those in Kanto. In a certain jungle, Meow Meow walked with a look of despair on his face. Who are you asking this question to? The map navigation machine is in your hands. If you want to calculate, just do it yourself. Chahu said. That's right. I'll calculate again and see how to get there at the fastest speed. Meow Meow pressed the navigation device to find the fastest way to move. Oh no, Anew City, I don't know what's going on. There is no direct train. If there is, we can go through the Ninja Academy in front and take the maglev train there to get there directly. Really, even a place like Shirayuki Mountain has a train navigation. Meow Meow said with a look of despair. Huh? What did you say? There is a maglev train from the Ninja Academy in front that can go directly to Shirayuki Mountain? Chahu's face changed. Yeah, but boss, if we take the maglev train there, we will bypass Yuansu City directly, so we won't be able to get the phantom badge of Yuansu Gym. Are you going to freeze in the White Snow Mountain? It's not fun there, Meow Meow said. It's not about whether it's fun or not, but it's a place we have to go through. Calculate the shortest route from here to the White Snow Mountain, and then to the Whirlpool Islands. If it's very short, then it doesn't matter if we miss Yuansu City. Anyway, Yuansu City is a transit station and we have to go back and forth. Chahu said. When you walk to Yuansu City, you will reach a fork in the road. You can choose to go to the Asaji Gym to get the steel badge, or go to the Kaji Gym to get the frozen badge. There are two different road directions. But no matter which one you choose, after getting the badge, you have to go back to Yuansu City before you can go to another gym. In this way, there is no need to rush to the gym in Yuansu City. After the competition in the Whirlpool Islands, you can first take the steel badge in Asahi City, then go to Yuansu City to get the phantom badge, and finally go to Kaji Gym to get the frozen badge. If you go this way, you can save some time. I'll look for it. If it's not there, we can go directly to the airport in front to take a plane. Whatever the boss needs, Meow Meow will definitely arrange the most suitable route. Hearing the hint of urgency in Chahu's words, Meow Meow also said seriously. As one of Chahu's most trusted assistants, its planning ability is not false. Got it, boss. We will pass through the Ninja Academy in front, and after getting on the train, we can go directly to the White Snow Mountain, and then take a plane at the airport next to the White Snow Mountain, and we can go directly to the Whirlpool Islands. We can also go to the Azure Gym to get a strike badge. According to this method, we only need 4 days to reach the Whirlpool Islands. Meow Meow said. 4 days? So soon? Zahu was shocked. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Yes, boss, you didn't ask me. I thought you would challenge the gyms one by one in the normal order, just like you did in the frontier area. Meow Meow said with a wronged look. Okay, it's my fault. I apologize. This month's bonus will be increased by 500. Forgive me. Okay. Zahu said. No problem. Meow. Meow Meow said excitedly. Being wrong once, you can get a 500 salary increase. Boss, you can insult me as much as you want in the future. Okay, quick battle. Let's hurry up. White Snow Mountain. Is there my proposal gift? Zahu said. Proposal gift? Kajiro and Meow Meow were shocked. Kona blushed at first, then reacted and said, are you saying there is Articuno on White Snow Mountain? Yes, there is an Articuno there. Its strength is not particularly high, but it is like this. There is more room for growth. Zahu said. In that case, we really need to walk faster. Kona's eyes lit up. She didn't care about ordinary Pokémon, but when it came to a rare ice beast like Articuno, Kona would never miss it. Oh. Walk faster. Do you want to quickly accept my proposal? Zahu teased. Articuno, I can capture it myself. It doesn't count as your gift. If you want to propose, prepare other gifts. Kona rolled her eyes charmingly at Zahu. Ah, that's fine. People can't be so unreasonable. Zahu looked unbelievable. When have you ever seen a woman talk about reason? Kona asked back with a smile, walking in front with a smug look on her face. Boss, work harder. We are waiting to eat the wedding cake. Meow Meow said. If you want to eat the cake, then you have to work harder and cheer for me, the boss. Zahu said. Boss, I will help you too, and I can also increase your bonus. Kajiro came up and said. No problem. There are also Monini and Guor and Weng. You two can do it too. Zahu said. Monini so Nasi Monini and Guor and Weng also had a joyful expression. Monini took the initiative to jump off Kajiro's shoulder and chased after Kona in front, jumping and hopping, as if he wanted to take Kona down for Zahu. Kona teased Monini, but didn't give a direct answer. Monini was jumping in front of Kona and naturally jumped to a bush in front. As a result, he seemed to be frightened and suddenly jumped into Kona's arms. Kona patted him gently to comfort him, wondering what happened in front. Zahu also walked over curiously and found that there was a commotion in the bush in front. A huge tree turtle walked out of it and showed a fierce expression to Zahu and others. So fierce. Boss, what kind of Pokémon is this? Kajiro said with surprise. Totoro, a grass type Pokémon among the initial 3 starter Pokémons that new trainers will get in the Sinnoh region, and the final evolution of the grass turtle. Zahu explained to Kajiro and Meowth. As if sensing the approach of Zahu and his men, the two-tailed turtle shouted at Zahu and his men fiercely. Meow. So fierce. Boss, beat it up and teach it to be a turtle. Meow Meow shouted loudly. If he came alone, he would be timid, but with Zahu and Kona by his side, Meow Meow showed that he was fearless. Don't encourage it. This two-tailed turtle is a Pokémon from the Sinnoh region. Although it is possible to be wild in the Sinnoh region, the possibility of being wild in the Johto region is pitifully small. Most of it has an owner. Zahu said. But aren't grass-type Pokémon generally more gentle? Why is this one so vigilant? Kona said. It may be because of his owner's personality. After all, when Pokémon stay with their owners for a long time, their personalities will be very close to their owners. Zahu said. So, his owner must have a very bad personality, otherwise he would not have bred such a Pokémon, and he actually scared the cute Monini. Kajiro said while holding Monini. It's even more shameless to speak ill of someone behind their back, especially when a Pokémon is so weak that it can be frightened by a tortoise. A useless Pokémon deserves a useless trainer. At this moment, a disdainful voice suddenly sounded. What are you talking about? Kajiro looked over angrily and found a grey-haired boy standing next to a tree. When Tortoise saw the boy, it immediately approached slowly to show its closeness. It was obvious that he was the trainer of this tortoise. Chapter 191 Give you a beating from society. If you have such a timid Pokémon, you must be weak yourself, and the companions of weak people are mostly weak people. So what are you guys arguing about? The boy glanced at Zahu and the others with disdain. What did you say? Hurry up and apologize to Monini, me and the boss. Kajiro said angrily. Apologize? Do you have the strength to do so? The boy said disdainfully. Do you dare to duel with me as a Pokémon? What are you afraid of? Come on, Growlithe, come on. Kajiro threw out his most trusted companion and said. Growlithe, want to use fire to restrain grass? Stupid. Go, Tortoise. The boy said. Tortoise moved its huge body and walked towards Growlithe, showing a ferocious expression. Growlithe roared back without giving in. It is Growlithe, which has the intimidating characteristic. Baring its teeth, it made an attacking gesture. The duel has not yet begun, and the two Pokémon are angry first. Growlithe, use jet fire. Kajiro took the lead in attacking. Growlithe opened its mouth and spewed out a mouthful of flames. The temperature around it also increased, showing the power of the flames. Looking at the flames, the young man's face became a little more serious and he said, Turtle, earthquake. Turtle roared, resisting Growlithe's jet of flames head on and pressing its sturdy limbs on the ground. The powerful force penetrated through, and the entire ground shook violently, and the earth and rocks collapsed. Growlithe was immediately injured, and its body retreated backwards, pulling a long distance away from Turtle. What a strong force! Kajiro said in surprise. Turtle, due to evolution, has become a grass dual attribute. Although its strength and defense have greatly increased, its body has also become extremely heavy and cannot move quickly. Generally, it can only wait for the opponent to attack it and then find the right opportunity to kill it with one strike. In addition, compared with physical defense, energy defense is relatively weak. Zahu said on the side. So that's how it is. Kajiro nodded in understanding and understood what Zahu meant. He should not approach easily and said, Kati, move at high speed, harass. Kati immediately ran suddenly and its speed soared, moving quickly beside Turtles. Want to harass again? But it's useless. My Turtles are not those Turtles that can only be beaten. Turtles use earthquake again. The boy said. Turtles' body shook and their front feet suddenly slapped the ground. Strong earthquake ripples spread in all directions, the earth shattered, and large pieces of earth and rocks flew. Kati was unable to dodge and was hit again, roaring in pain. Kati, are you okay? Kajiro said anxiously. Kati barked, as if to say that it was okay, and crouched down, making an attacking posture. Okay, Kati, use the jet of fire again. Kajiro said. Kati opened its mouth wide and burst into a strong flame again. Tortoise also remained motionless and injured it. With its speed, it was impossible for it to escape, so it could only endure it. However, it also erupted an earthquake again, attacking Growlithe, and Kajiro still did not take any effective measures. Boss, will Kajiro win this game? Meowth said worriedly. It's hard to say. Zahu said. Kajiro's trainer level also changed with the state. Although he would burst out with amazing fighting power under some stimulation, such as when Musashi and Meowth were planning to steal Monini in the animation, he fought seriously and commanded Desert Naya to easily send Musashi, Meowth, and Snake into the sky. However, in most states, he was just an ordinary entry-level trainer. He could bully the rookie trainers on the roadside, but he would lose when he met an elite. And the kid on the opposite side, although he looked like he deserved a beating, the tortoise was at the elite level. As his trainer, the kid's strength would not be too bad. Overall, Kajiro was more likely to lose. Kajiro is also facing an unprecedented crisis at this moment. He hasn't fought for a long time since the Quartz Conference. This time he is facing a two-take aim, which he is not familiar with. Although he has heard Zahu talk about the attributes and characteristics, he still doesn't know where to start. But the kid on the opposite side dared to scare Monini, which is unforgivable in Kajiro's heart, and he must teach him a lesson. Roar while thinking, the painful roar of Growlithe came again, waking Kajiro up. Looking at the painful Growlithe, Kajiro felt a burning anger in his heart. No, he must win, and he can't let Growlithe be bullied. But how to win? It would be great if it was the boss. The boss will definitely win if he commands. By the way, if it was the boss, what would he do now? Kajiro's eyes suddenly lit up, and when Turtles used Earthquake again, causing the earth and rocks to crack, He suddenly shouted loudly, "Catty, believe in yourself, step on the stones and jump, and then use jet fire." Finally, Catty heard Kajiro's command and jumped excitedly, stepped on a few pieces of gravel, and quickly rose to a high altitude, completely avoiding the attack brought by the earthquake, and then sprayed a large piece of flame, burning Turtles, and the pain on Turtle's face became even more severe. The ground system is resistant to fire, but not resistant to fire. But, come on, Catty. Kajiro shouted excitedly. Yes, Catty, come on. Meowth cheered excitedly. Monini knew that Catty was working hard for it, and cheered loudly. This Catty is quite strong. It was able to run just now. If it evolves, it should be able to enter the elite level. Kona said. Of course it's good, I trained it. But if it evolves, its appearance will change, so Growlithe and Kajiro don't plan to do it. Zahu said. That's right. But it's still a bit difficult to let Growlithe fight against Tortoise. Kona said. Although it seems to have won temporarily, Tortoise is still slightly better. It took 3 earthquakes with unfavorable attributes. If it hadn't been practicing with Yuren Weng recently and suffered several counterattacks, it would have lost long ago. Now it is also seriously injured. Sure enough, Kona's prediction was just said, and then the boy shouted loudly, "Don't think that this will win. Tortoise, rock block." Tortoise roared in response, and large pieces of rocks fell rapidly from the sky. Growlithe ran quickly on the ground to avoid the attack of the rocks, and then when it avoided the falling rocks again and again, it found that all the rocks had surrounded it. "Okay, Tortoise, destroy the dead light, solve it," the boy shouted. The mouth of the turtle opened wide, and a powerful energy wave shot out, penetrating the blocked stone wall. The figure of the caterpillar flew out, hit the tree on the side, fell down helplessly, and his eyes turned into circles, completely losing his ability to fight. "Katie." Kajiro ran over with a distressed look on his face. The caterpillar called to Kajiro guiltily. Kajiro touched the head of the caterpillar and said, "No, it's none of your business. You are already very powerful. I didn't command well. It's the same. The Pokémon is useless, and the people are also useless," the boy said arrogantly. "Winning once doesn't mean anything. It's too much to hurt people with your words at every turn." Kona also frowned. "Who are you? What qualifications do you have to preach to me? Come and fight, if you have the ability. I hate people like you who are only good at talking, but have poor actual ability," the boy said coldly. Kona's eyes were slightly cold. She had a good personality in front of Zahu, but as one of the 4 kings, she had her own pride. "This is the first time I want to hit someone so much. You are a teenager who lacks social beatings. Let me teach you how to be a man. Come out, Haxlang." Zahu threw Haxlang and said, "Haxlang, it seems that you still have some strength. Then it's still too taggy," the boy said. "You just finished a fight, and you don't want to rest?" Zahu frowned and said, "No, you are not worthy of Tutaga's rest," the boy said proudly. Tutagi, Leaf Storm. The green wind light on a tree on the shell of Tutagi condensed, and then burst towards Haxlang. "Haxlang, Freezing Ray," Zahu said. A flash of ice light flashed from Haxlang's mouth, directly piercing through Tutagi's Leaf Storm, and falling straight onto Tutagi. Tutagi cried out in grief, and his huge body fell to the ground, completely losing his ability to fight. "Is this the strength you are confident of?" Zahu said. The boy's face rose. He didn't expect Zahu's strength to be stronger than he thought. He said, "You can only win when Tutaku consumes a lot of energy." Next, the second one is Hippomon. A Pokeball was thrown, and a hippo with a huge mouth appeared in the field. "Hippomon? Another ground Pokémon. It seems that you specialize in ground type Pokémon, but with such strength, it is not enough to fight me." "Haxorus, Freeze Beam," Zahu said. Ice light condensed in Haxorus' mouth. However, this time the boy learned a lesson and shouted, "Hippomon, dig a hole." As the voice fell, Hippomon quickly drilled into the ground, and Haxorus's freeze beam could only hit nothing. "Do you think I will fail again after I learned a lesson? Today I will let you know what real strength is," the boy said. "You talk too much nonsense, Haxorus, Dragon Tail," Zahu said. Haxorus' tail flashed a faint golden light and attacked the ground fiercely. Suddenly, the entire ground broke, and Hippomon under the ground was forced to fly out. Not good, Hippomon. Control your body, use Ice Fang on Haxorus, said the boy. After hearing this, Hippomon barely managed to stabilize his body in midair, and his teeth flashed with ice light, ready to attack. Dragon Tail, Zahu said calmly. Haxorus tail flashed again, and it quickly chopped down from top to bottom, hitting Hippomon's upper lip, making Hippomon's mouth tightly closed. Before the Ice Fang had a chance to be used, the whole Hippomon fell to the ground, and Hippomon showed a painful expression on his face. The last blow, the freezing ray, Zahu said. The ice light condensed in Haxorus' mouth, and the strong ray accurately hit Hippomon. Hippomon cried out in grief, and fell to the ground, losing all his fighting ability. Chapter 192 Aju and Kikuno. How many are left? Attack them all together, or 6 together, and I lose one. A genius trainer who is different from the useless people like us, Zahu said sarcastically. Monini is half of his pet, and he usually doesn't bully him. Kojiro is his complete younger brother, but he is the only one who can bully him. If he touches these two, he deserves a beating. He also mocked Kona, saying that if I don't let you see what the society is like, you can't recognize the reality. You bastard. The boy said angrily, throwing a Pokeball and saying, King Scorpio, come on. Zahu's mouth showed even more disdain. King Scorpio, ground plus flying, is 4 times restrained by ice attacks. And although it has the attribute of flying, it can only glide, and cannot fly like the giant claw mantis. Compared with the free-flying Haxorus, it has no advantage at all. So this guy's brain is starting to break. That's enough, Tim. You are no match for him. Stop fighting. Just then, a stern female voice sounded, and an elderly woman with grey hair and a man dressed as a ninja came over. Granny Kikuno, King Aju. Seeing the people coming, the boy lowered his head uncomfortably. Kiryu King Aju. Zahu looked at the 2 people who came out, and a strange expression appeared on his face. He actually met 2 kings here, although one was from Johto and the other was from Sinnoh, but they were indeed 2 kings. Long time no see, King Kona, Dr. Zahu. Aju greeted Kona and Zahu. King Kona? She is also a king? The young Tim looked at Kona in shock. Thinking of what he said before, he wished he could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. How could he have the nerve to say that a king was not qualified to guide him? Of course, the Ice King, one of the 4 heavenly kings of Kanto, is very powerful. Kikuno said solemnly. As for the one you are fighting, he is the youngest doctor in the alliance. He discovered the fairy attributes at the age of 12 and published his research. He started traveling at the age of 15 this year, but won the Quartz Conference Championship in the first year. He is also the trainer of the legendary Pokémon Articuno. How can you beat him? Legendary Pokémon, Articuno. Tim was shocked. Thinking of his previous behavior, he felt even more ashamed. Zahu didn't look at him, but looked at Aju and Kikuno and said, it's rare to meet 2 kings in the wild. I just don't know what big event it is that can make the 2 kings come out. That's not the case. It's just that the Ninja Academy where I participated in the study is just in front, and King Kikuno accompanied her juniors to study in Johto, so she came to our academy to visit and study. Aju explained. Pokémon Ninja Academy is the legendary academy that combines ninjutsu and Pokémon duels, right? It seems that you are planning to carry forward your ideas. Kona said. Not accurate. Actually, I studied at the Ninja Academy. I'm just a teacher now instead of a student. Aju said politely. Compared to Zahu, she had more respect for Kona, because the reason why he didn't become the king in the king challenge was because he was defeated by Kikuko and Kona one after another. So that's how it is. Kona nodded. In fact, many Pokémon have natural ninjutsu, such as shadow clones and bone boomerangs. For example, Tim came to Johto to capture a Giragara, so he came to the Ninja Academy for further study. King Kikuno also came here, so I invited her to give a lecture here. It just so happens that you are here too, King Kona and Dr. Zahu. I wonder if you can come together to perform a battle. Aju invited. Fight? Sorry, I have something to do recently, so I don't have time. Kona declined. They are going to look for Articuno and Lugia next, so naturally they don't have much time to give a lecture on fighting. Are you so busy? Can't you squeeze out a day? Just a battle will be fine. I originally wanted to perform with Kikuno Tenno, and now you and Dr. Zahu are here, so it's just right for us to fight each other and hold 2 performances. Aju said. Squeeze out a day. Kona looked at Zahu. Although she didn't want to delay, Aju was one of the 4 Tenno kings of Johto after all. It would be a bit bad to refuse such a serious invitation. After all, Kanto and Johto are one. If it's just today, it's okay. In the evening, we have to catch the train to the White Snow Mountain. If not, I'm sorry. Zahu thought for a while and said, no problem. In this case, the afternoon class can be directly changed to a Tenno exhibition match. I also want to know the power of Dr. Zahu's Articuno. Aju smiled. He had fought with Kona many times, so he was more interested in Zahu's Articuno. I'm interested in Aju Tenno's poison type Pokémon. Zahu also smiled politely. After packing up their things, they walked towards the ninja academy in front of them. After passing through a jungle, a huge ninja academy appeared in front of them. Compared with it, the dodgers of Miramasa and Genzo Ryu were not up to paragraph. In fact, this is a feature of this world. Large Pokémon academies are not in bustling cities, but in uninhabited forests. For example, in Kanto, the noble Pokémon Academy of the Sunday family is also in a large forest. Although there are reasons, such as Pokémon battles are too big and difficult to carry out in the city, and if they go to the wild, more small wild Pokémon can be captured for students, and students' independent abilities can be better trained in the wild. Finally, there are economic reasons such as cheaper land in the wild, but every time I see a luxurious school in the wild, I always feel a little bit out of place. Walking in the campus, Zahu saw a group of people gathered together, and there was a faint sound of Pokémon fighting inside. It should be the students fighting, and he couldn't help but laugh. It seems that the atmosphere of the battle in the academy is very good. So, wait a while, when the battle performance is on, it will definitely be more lively. Aju smiled. Zahu nodded, but suddenly heard a familiar commanding voice from inside. Pikachu, use 100,000 volts. Zahu stopped in his tracks. This voice was definitely from Zyozzy. He had wasted too much time in the Genzo Ryu dojo, and he was not as fast as Zyozzy. He really had to hurry up. Aju was about to ask what happened, but before he could ask, he suddenly heard a familiar female voice from inside. Furry ball, get out of the way. Aju also stopped immediately. This voice belonged to his sister Aya. Zahu and Aju looked at each other, and walked inside consciously. Sure enough, they saw a familiar man and woman fighting inside. Pikachu, don't be afraid, you Scientale. Zyozzy said with a fist. Pikachu jumped in the air, did a beautiful roll, and the springtail shone brightly, whipping the furry ball on the opposite side. The furry ball was knocked out, and fell heavily to the ground. His eyes turned into circles and he completely lost his ability to fight. After we separated, your strength has really grown. It's much stronger than when you were in the Crimson Gym. Aya took back the fur ball and said to Zyozzy, of course, after we separated in Crimson City, I challenged many other gyms. I also challenged the Orange League, so my strength has certainly become stronger. Only by becoming stronger can I catch up with my brother. Zyozzy said excitedly. I look forward to your changes. I believe that one day you will defeat your brother. I will also speed up my pace and catch up with my brother. Aya said. Let's cheer together. Zyozzy encouraged each other. Yes, cheer together. Aya also had a passionate face. After the duel, the two trainers became friends with each other. It can be said that it was a perfect development. The students of the Ninja Academy next to them all felt that they benefited a lot. Only Zahu and Aju, as the older brothers, had strange expressions. They looked at each other. My brother, my sister, you are so lucky. Poor. The two people were not very familiar with each other, but at this moment, when their eyes met, they suddenly felt that everything was self-evident. Chapter 193 Duel with Aju. Students, what we are going to watch is a duel between this year's Johto King, your senior Aju, and this year's Quartz Conference champion, the discoverer of the fairy attribute, Dr. Zahu. Watch carefully and don't miss any details. The principal of the Ninja Academy stood on the stage and gave a speech to a group of students watching to increase everyone's enthusiasm for watching. However, his behavior was actually completely unnecessary, because when seeing their usual idol, the legendary Poison King, the students of the entire Ninja Academy were boiling. Now the audience not only did not mobilize much passion for the principal, but instead felt depressed listening to the leader's speech. So, brother is here to play an exhibition match, but Mr. Aju on the opposite side turned out to be the Poison King. Zyozzy in the audience said with a shocked face, "Of course, my brother is the invincible ninja master in the world, the latest Poison King in Johto. The last time I played with you, I was just busy preparing for the King's tournament and didn't play seriously." Aya said. "Is that so?" Zyozzy still realized it after a while. As a person who was devoted to training Pokémon, he didn't know the champions or the 4 heavenly kings. "Yes, so you should watch carefully and see how my brother beats your brother. In this way, you can accumulate enough experience to beat your brother." Aya said. "Impossible, my brother will definitely win." Zyozzy shook his head and retorted. No matter what opponent he faced, Zyozzy was full of confidence in his brother. "Just kidding, my brother is a heavenly king. Do you know what a heavenly king is? He is one of the strongest people in a region." Aya looked like you didn't know anything. "Isn't he just a stronger trainer?" Zyozzy said indifferently. In the original animation, he and the Rocket team didn't regard the 4 heavenly kings and the champions as so far away. He dared to challenge them every time he met one, and the Rocket team was even more outrageous. Every time they met one, they wanted to capture their Pokémon. Listening to Zyozzy's words, Aya couldn't help but teach Zyozzy a lesson and let him know the meaning of the 4 heavenly kings. It was only when he realized that Zyozzy's attention was not on her at all, but on the stage, that he swallowed all the words in his stomach and thought, "Wait a minute, when the fight starts, I will let you know how stupid your idea is." Because there were too many spectators, Zahu and Aju didn't hear the quarrel between Zyozzy and Aya. At this time, they were only thinking about their opponents. Aju wanted to see Zahu's Articuno, and Zahu was interested in Aju's strength. The match is a 3-on-3 exhibition match. I hope Dr. Zahu will not show mercy. I will be completely serious. Aju said. "I will be serious." Zahu also responded politely, but he thought in his heart, "If I'm completely serious, even the 3 sacred birds will come out together, but in that case, can you really bear it?" Although Aju is a king, he is only a new king, and he is also the king of Johto. You must know that, because of the reason that Zibber and Do are running between the two, Johto is much more tense than other regions in terms of kings. Therefore, when recruiting Johto kings, they will be appropriately relaxed. This is not an isolated case. The bug-type king of SYNOPSIS is also in this situation. Although he is also one of the 4 heavenly kings, in fact, his strength is a level lower than the other 3. "My first Pokémon is him, Fortis," AG said. "Fortis?" Zahu was slightly stunned. The real main force of the king level in AG's hands were Moth and Ghastly. Now Fortis was released first. It seems that he wanted to test his strength first. "In this case, let's go out and try," Zahu said. In addition to the 3 mythical birds, he now has Fortis, Golduck, and Lucario, all of which have entered the Quasi King level. However, Golduck is too reckless, and Lucario is the weakest among the 3. It is also carrying a weight, so it is not suitable. In the end, only Fortis is left. Fortis left the Pokeball and flew freely in the sky. The weather around it also became humid at the first time. Hakron. Aju's eyes showed a bit of surprise. He had seen many Hakrons, but it was rare to see a Hakron as big as Zahu's, and with such an extraordinary aura. With the intuition developed from years of fighting, Aju could judge that the Hakron was at the level of a Quasi King, but was it so easy to become a Quasi King? If Hakron was a Quasi King, wouldn't it be possible to evolve into a Dragonite and become a king? Hakron, mysterious guard. Zahu was the first to order. Hakron's slender body shook, and a strange light shone all over the body, and then spread to the entire venue. "Are you trying to specifically restrain my poison attribute attack?" Seeing Zahu's order, Aju's pupils shrank slightly. Mysterious guard can protect one Pokémon from falling into abnormal state, confusion state, and sleepy state for a period of time. As a king of poison attribute, Aju is best at using various trap combinations. to make the opponent's Pokémon fall into the midway state, thereby weakening the opponent step by step, and then defeating it. But if we ignore the weakening of various poison types and simply count the attack power, the only one in his hand that can reach the level of a king is a moth. After all, Anew follows the assassin style and the dirty style, not the hard attack style. In a sense, Anew can be regarded as the gatekeeper of the king, combining ninjutsu with Pokémon battles. If Anew's various ninjutsu cannot be cracked, Anew will be slightly more terrifying than Do and others, but if it can be cracked, it will be the weakest. This is natural. How can you not take precautions first when fighting against a poison type king? Zahu smiled. Among all the kings, the ones he least wanted to fight were Kikuko and Anew, because these two guys played poison, and Pokémon poisoning is not just a state like in the game, but it can really endanger life. But this alone is not enough. Fortis, Saling. Anew smiled. Although his strength was sealed a lot, as a poison type king who specializes in this area, he was also prepared not to use poison. After hearing this, Fortis immediately spun at high speed, and large pieces of diamonds flew out and scattered all over the field. Zahu saw this, and his face changed slightly. Sure enough, compared with this kind of routine type opponent, routines can't be avoided, no matter how hard you try, but this level is still within the scope of coping. Then, Haxlong, let's make the field a little wet, Zahu said. Haxlong's slender body trembled slightly, and large pieces of dark clouds gathered above the field. In just a few breaths, heavy rain fell. Next, Haxlong, thunder, Zahu said. Haxlong groaned, and a powerful yellow electric current rushed, and suddenly fell from the sky. Fortis, high-speed rotation. Fortis' round body immediately spun rapidly on the spot, and the ground below sank directly, and then directly set off a sandstorm, mixed with rain, and the power was even stronger. Although Haxlong's thunder attacked Fortis' direction, after passing through the heavy sand and dust, the weak electricity that fell on Fortis was directly bounced off. Ninjas are not only good at lurking and hiding, but also use the power of nature. Anew smiled. Zahu's expression did not change. It was the same old routine. Last time in the battle palace, Elder Yukang also used the same trick, using high-speed rotation to stir up a small sandstorm, but Anew used it better. Fretus, keep spinning, and then use high-speed stars, Anew said. As soon as the voice fell, many stars immediately appeared on the body of the high-speed rotating Fretus, flying all over the sky, and it was like night. However, these stars, in addition to being beautiful, are also very aggressive. Hakron was unable to dodge, and was hit by all of them. In the first round of confrontation, Anew had the upper hand. Chapter 194, Twitch, Spinning Top. Brother, you actually got a loss. Below the stage, Zyozzy looked at the scene in disbelief. This is normal, my brother is the king, AS said proudly. Tim, who was watching from the side, also showed a happy expression and said, so that's all. Kona glanced at Tim with a special meaning. The weak, because they know that they can't beat the strong, can only hope that others will beat them in order to satisfy their weak and pathetic vanity. Tim's face changed, and there was a hint of anger in his eyes, but because Kona was the king, he didn't dare to refute. Kikuno, who witnessed all this, shook his head, and was also dissatisfied with Tim's performance. His strength is good, but his personality is too bad. He is not as good as Yusachi. Although his strength is a little weak, he is innocent and optimistic, and has the potential to become a good trainer. If Tim doesn't change, his achievements in this life will be limited. No wonder he asked me to bring him to Kanto to see the masters, and give him some appropriate setbacks. Fretus, keep spinning at high speed, exert your full strength, and let the sandstorm cover the entire venue. Anew did not show excessive joy because of the short-term victory, and continued to give orders meticulously. Since we are fighting, we should forget everything except fighting. Fretus received the master's order, and accelerated the rotation. The shell kept spinning on the ground, and the ground was full of flying sand, which blocked everyone's sight at once. The usual routine of ninjas is to block the sight and attack. Hakron, don't panic, just use thunder to find it, Zahu said. The confused Hakran's eyes lit up and immediately burst out with strong lightning, which fell from the sky and hit a certain area in the smoke directly, and then the storm in a certain area suddenly became stronger. Sure enough, it's there. Hakran, Dragon Tail, Force Break. Zahu said. After hearing this, Hakran swung his tail and flew at high speed, and then his tail shone brightly, forcibly breaking through the sandstorm protection and hitting Fortis directly. However, the high-speed rotation of Fortis exceeded Zahu's expectations. With the power of Hakran, even with a full-strength attack, he could not shake Fortis' rotation. Using thunder to determine Fortis' location is really clever, but you seem to have forgotten that Fortis' physical defense is very high. Anew smiled slightly. Okay, next, it's my turn. Fortis, use the high-speed stars again. Fortis spun rapidly, and large pieces of stars were thrown out of Fortis again, and all of a sudden, they filled the sky. Hakran, use thunder again to destroy all the high-speed stars. Zahu said. Hakran's eyes shone brightly, and powerful electric currents burst out from his body again, destroying all the high-speed stars around him. The 3 blue gems on his chin and tail, which contained the mysterious power to control the weather, flashed together, and the amount of rain in the sky increased accordingly. Although Fortis was still spinning at a high speed, the heavy rain made the surrounding sand and dust heavier. Although it could still form a sandstorm, its speed was greatly slowed down. Hakran, twitch, Zahu said. Hakran's eyes were serious, and he dived down at a high speed. His tail hit the side of Fortis' rotation, and he whipped it violently in the direction of Fortis' rotation like a spinning top. Fortis' speed, which had already reached its limit, soared again uncontrollably under Hakran's violent whipping, and then he was thrown in one direction quickly like a spinning top, and hit a tree next to the Ninja Academy as fast as a meteor, and cut it directly from the middle. When the speed is increased to a certain level, the destructive power of an object will be greatly increased. And Fortis' rotation speed is already amazingly fast, not to mention that it is now accelerated by Hakran. Fortis, hold on, come back, maintain this power, and attack Haxlan. Anew shouted urgently. He didn't expect that Zahu and Haxlan had such a good tacit understanding. A single word of Twitch could be implemented so well, and Haxlan actually broke through Fortis' defense. It's just that the crisis is dangerous, but it's also an opportunity. Maintaining this attack is enough to break Haxlan. Fortis, who was spinning at high speed, felt the call of his master and endured the uncomfortable feeling of spinning. He rushed towards Haxlan in the sky, like a thrown boulder. Haxlan, don't dodge, use your body as a track to relieve Fortis' power, and then pull it out. Zahu said. After hearing this, Haxorus immediately controlled his body that was about to escape. His tail was gleaming. He first used his dragon tail to touch the high-speed spinning body of Fortis, then used his slender tail to relieve the force, and finally felt the opportunity and twitch suddenly. The body that had been rolled over before now became the axis that pulled the gyroscope. The longer it was, the more powerful it was. Fortis was thrown back at a faster speed than when he came. If it was like a stone thrown by a catapult during the attack, it was now a meteorite, hitting the ground heavily, with a deafening roar, and a large amount of smoke and sand. When the smoke and sand were all dispersed, the ground was broken, and Fortis was lying there with his eyes bulging. This bulging eye was not only because of the loss of combat power, but also because he was really dizzy. Although it is a Pokémon with various powerful special moves, and has experienced hundreds of battles with Anew, it is even more than ordinary Pokémon, but it is also a living creature, not data. It would be strange if he didn't feel dizzy after such a rotation beyond the limit. Although it still has some strength in its body, its brain has lost the ability to think. Brother, you actually lost the first game. Aya said in disbelief. Of course, because my brother won. Ozzy said proudly. It's just the first game. This is 3-on-3. Next, it's time for my brother to use tactics and win. Although Aya was still a little shocked, she was still unwilling to be outdone. It's my brother who will win. Ozzy said tit for tat. Okay, stop arguing, keep watching, and learn well. It turns out that high-speed rotation can be used like this, and Haxorus's body can also be used to do this kind of thing. These are all things to learn. Zyraksha stopped the two people from arguing. Yes, it turns out that the high-speed rotation of Fortis is so powerful. After my Hazelnut Ball evolves, it will become Fortis. I wonder if I can spin like this. Zyanagang said. Seeing this, Zyozzy and Aya stopped arguing and prepared to watch the game at ease. Aju King actually lost. Tim also had an expression of disbelief. Don't be too surprised. Aju didn't send out his strongest main force just now, and he was targeted at the beginning. He couldn't use his best poison attribute, and his strength as the king of poison was suppressed. It's normal to lose, but Professor Zahu's Haxorus is a bit too much. It can control the weather too easily, far beyond the average Haxorus. Kikuno said. Isn't it the ability of a trainer to cultivate Pokémon to be strong? Kona laughed. She also learned the origin of Zahu's Haxorus from Zahu. It was a Haxorus with the blood of the super ancient Dragonite. Kona still can't forget the thunder that destroyed the world when he was at the Zenghu Lighthouse. That's right, he is worthy of being the trainer of the legendary Articuno. Kikuno said. No, it's his Articuno, not him who is Articuno. Kona corrected with a smile. Kikuno was stunned and naturally understood what Kona meant. The trainer who possessed Articuno was known for his Articuno, while the trainer's Articuno became stronger because of the trainer. Just like people would say that Doo's Dragonite was famous, instead of saying that Doo was famous because of Dragonite. I look forward to it. Kikuno's eyes flashed slightly. Although she originally valued Zahu, she focused more on the doctor's knowledge rather than the opponent, but Kona gave her a different answer. Chapter 195, Pokemon's Ninjutsu. Dr. Zahu, you have taught me a lesson. This is the first time I know that the body of Haxorus can be used in this way. Your Haxorus is well cultivated. Aju's eyes gradually became sharp. He only felt Zahu's strength now. He originally thought that Zahu only relied on Articuno, but the last battle told him that he thought too much. It's just taking advantage of the loophole. Fletus is still powerful, but he is too dizzy. No matter how powerful he is, he can't fight. Zahu said. Why should Dr. Zahu be modest? Pokémon fights, which is to use their own strengths to attack the enemy's weaknesses. If you just use the strong against the strong, how can the Pokémon battle be full of art? Aju said. He is good at ninjutsu, which is to use his own strengths to attack the opponent's weaknesses. How could he not know that this is the way to fight Pokémon? Zahu did not object. This is the infinite possibility of Pokémon battles. As long as the timing and method are good, it is not impossible to defeat the strong with the weak. After all, Pokémon battles are not the duels between novices in fantasy novels. There are clear levels of generals, marquesses, kings, and emperors. The strong are all round strong. If you are one level lower, you will definitely lose. The weak defeating the strong is only the patent of a few protagonists. Here, the weak defeating the strong, although not everywhere, is definitely not a rare thing. For example, the elite level Pidgeot is definitely faster than the king level Tortoise, but it is just beaten in other aspects of strength. But if you can seize any mistakes, it is impossible to win. Just like when fighting against the pyramid, Zyozzy Charizard fought against the Night Demon. Obviously, the strength was higher than the opponent, but because Zyozzy was too hot-blooded and his brain was broken, he used a fighting trick to attack the ghost type in the last move, and ended up losing gorgeously. Next, it's this, Zbat. Aju threw a Pokeball and said, Zbat. Zahu looked at the bat in front of him whose body looked like an X, thinking to himself that this was the third most powerful existence in Aju's team. Although it was not a king level, it had defeated other king level Pokémon in cooperation with other Pokémon. But since it was not a moth, there was no need to change, and let Haxorus continue. Haxorus, use Mystic Guardian next, Zahu said. You didn't change. Aju was surprised. It's okay, this guy can still fight, Zahu said. In fact, there was a more embarrassing thing. Zahu didn't know how strong his Haxorus was. When it was a mini dragon, because it was too small, Zahu didn't let it fight too much. After all, the mini dragon's body limited its attack. Zahu also wanted to wait until it became a Haxorus before fighting. But after evolving into a Haxorus, this guy's strength improved by leaps and bounds. The body became bigger day by day, and there were more and more strange patterns on the tail. On the day that Goran joined the team, it showed strength that surpassed Lucario and Haunter. At that time, Zahu thought that the strength of a high-level elite was almost the same as its strength. Until one day, when Zahu saw Haxan fighting against Golduck and completely suppressing Golduck, he suddenly realized that this guy had reached the strength of Aqua Seeking. But is this the limit of this guy? So, fight in one breath to see where the limit of this lazy guy is. In this case, Zbat, Shadow Clone. Anew quickly made a seal, showing the coldness of a ninja. The figure of Zbat changed rapidly, and in an instant, nearly 100 clones appeared, densely packed, almost covering the entire venue. Zahu's pupils shrank. It was worthy of Anew's Zbat, who could play the Shadow Clone so well, but in front of Haxan, all ninjutsu were meaningless. Haxan, heavy rain. Zahu said. The 3 beads on Haxlang's body flashed with strange light, and then a torrential rain poured down, washing the entire venue, and all the clones of the crossbat were ineffective. The clones were just illusions that use light to confuse people, and they could not stop the real thing. For Haxlang to control the rainstorm that covered the entire venue was almost a thought, effortless. In a sense, Haxlang, who could use mysterious protection to resist poison and control the weather to wash away the illusions, was Anew's nemesis. The means he was best at could not be used. Okay, thunder, Zahu said. Haxlang's body trembled, and lightning and thunder immediately flashed in the clouds. The violent lightning vented towards the crossbat, and the crossbat was in pain and trembling. Next, the dragon's tail. Zahu said Haxlang's tail flashed, and the tail came down and hit the crossbat. The crossbat fell down immediately, turned into a circle, and completely lost its ability to fight. Lost again. All the students of Ninja Academy and Aya were watching this scene in disbelief. The pride of Ninja Academy, Anew, was defeated by 2 Pokémon in a row with 1 Pokémon? How is this possible? At this moment, everyone felt that their faith was shattered. Zyos, he shouted with all his heart, not thinking that he might be beaten by others. However, looking at the fallen Zbat, Zahu always felt that something was wrong. Although Zbat was not particularly outstanding except for its speed, Anew's Zbat should not be so weak. Everything was too smooth, unscientific. With his eyes rolling, Zahu immediately found the problem and ordered anxiously, Hakran, fly up quickly, that's just a substitute. Too late. Anew's voice suddenly rang out, and he formed seals with his hands, making a move that all students thought was heroic, but Zahu thought was a middle school student, and shouted, X-Bat, use the ultimate impact. As soon as the voice fell, a X-Bat suddenly appeared somewhere in the venue, and then like a missile, it radiated a terrifying aura and hit the defenseless Hakran who thought he had won. Hakran screamed and fell to the ground in pain. Hakran, Zahu shouted with a worried look on his face. The ultimate impact is a trick as powerful as the destruction of the death ray. In the broken soil, Hakran made a subtle cry and barely flew up, but before it flew high, Anew's voice came again. Then, come again, ultimate impact. After the ultimate impact hit Haxorus, it took advantage of the situation to rotate upwards, dissolving the body stiffness caused by the use of the super impact. At this time, gravity naturally fell, and the super impact was used again. The ultimate impact had almost no side effects, but was more powerful. With the acceleration of gravity, it directly hit the seriously injured Haxorus. Haxorus didn't hold on after all. The 2 ultimate impacts were too powerful, and he fell to the ground powerlessly. Seeing this scene, the students of the Ninja Academy, who had been suppressed for a long time, burst into cheers like a tsunami. Idols are still idols, and ninjutsu is still useful. Aya looked at Zyelsi proudly and said, look, this is the strength of my brother Xian Wang. Even if he can't use the attribute attack he is best at, he can still rely on his excellent command experience to win by surprise. Your brother can't win. My brother's strength is more than just this. Zyelsi said angrily, and the two stared at each other again. Zylaksha and Zyadagang shook their heads, no longer wanting to get involved in the fight between the two, and just focused on watching the battle. Although I'm the king of poison, it does not mean that I can only use poison skills. I asked Dudu how to use flying Pokémon. Anew said. So, you also think Dudu is actually the king of flying? Zahu suddenly laughed. Anew's expression was subtle. Although he felt that Zahu was right, he still remained silent. After all, Dudu was stronger than him and had helped him a lot. Why don't you reply? Do you dare not say it? Forget it. I won't tease you anymore. Next, my Pokemon is this. Zahu's face was slightly serious, and he threw out the Pokeball of Articuno. Articuno flew out of the Pokeball, circling gracefully in the sky, its wings vibrating, and ice crystals falling. The rainy weather almost turned into snow in an instant. I wish for it. Adju's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Now that Haxorus has been eliminated, the time for the mysterious guard has basically come. It is time for his most proficient poison attack to play a role. Chapter 196 The Powerful Articuno. X-Bat, Black Fog. Adju gave the order first, and began to arrange his ninjutsu field. A large amount of thick fog immediately sprayed out of the mouth of X-Bat, covering the entire venue, making it difficult to see the positions and movements of the two Pokémon. Next, Shadow Clone. Adju continued to give orders, and in the black fog, a dense sound of wings vibrating came. What is this doing? Aren't the functions of black fog and shadow clones both to confuse the opponent's vision? You have already used one trick, why use the second one? Zyanagang was puzzled when he saw this. Stupid, this is my big brother's Pokémon ninjutsu. If you only use shadow clones, it will be quickly exposed under the flying snow, but in the black fog, how many will be destroyed? Zahu doesn't know, and how X-Bat attacks, Zahu doesn't know. Aya said. But it's all in the black fog, how can X-Bat be sure of the location of Articuno? Zyos, he asked curiously. Hearing Zyos' question, Aya looked at Zyos like an idiot and said, you idiot, Zbat is a bat, and its eyes are not very useful. It usually uses ultrasound to explore the road, so the black fog has no effect on it at all. Just wait and see, in this game, all the rhythm will be controlled by my brother. Next, it's Articuno who is poisoned. Zyos, he was secretly anxious when he heard this. If he were in the same situation, it seemed that there was no way to solve it. Drive Zahu, how should you solve this situation? Adju looked at Zahu and said, it's very simple, just knock it down. Articuno, have you had enough fun? It's almost time, throws bat out. Zahu said indifferently. Adju's face changed, and he said to throw it out without saying anything. Is it possible? Just as he was hesitating, he heard a bird cry in the black fog, and then Zbat was really thrown out. It fell to the ground, with circles in its eyes, and it completely lost its ability to fight. How is it possible? Adju's face changed. He lost before, because he couldn't use the ninjutsu he was good at, but now he can use his ninjutsu. Nothing is impossible. Ninjutsu is what you are most confident in, so after using ninjutsu, you will be carried away by success, just like Haxorus just now. In fact, I can let Articuno use Blizzard to blow away your black fog from the beginning, but I think you will lose faster with the black fog, so I didn't use it. Zahu said. That's right. Whether you are a trainer or a ninja, the most important thing is to keep an absolutely calm heart. Confidence and arrogance may bring disaster to yourself. You have given me experience. Adju nodded seriously. He no longer regarded Zahu as a challenger who could challenge him, but seriously regarded Zahu as an opponent of the same level. With a serious expression, he said, in this case, next, I will send it, the moth. The Pokeball was thrown, and a moth Pokémon with a lavender body flew out. 3 slender antennae protruded on the top of its head, and there were 3 pairs of tiny legs on its chest. The 2 pairs of huge wings covered with purple phosphorus powder at the back trembled slightly, flashing beautiful brilliance. Finally, the last main force was released. Zahu's pupils shrank slightly. Although these phosphorus powders looked good, they were all poisonous. This was also the reason why Zahu did not send Moltres and Zapdos. Adju was good at poison, and it was easy to be poisoned if he was not careful. In reality, poisoning is not just a simple state like in the game, but real poisoning. If it is not treated in time, it may be fatal. Zahu didn't want his Pokémon to be poisoned in one match, so he used Articuno to kill it in 1 second. Moth, this opponent is very strong. Butterfly dance. Adju said. Moth danced gracefully, the light flashed, and the power on its body increased rapidly. Since you are so cautious, then I will attack first. Articuno, freezing ray. Zahu said. Articuno's wings vibrated rapidly, and it quickly approached Moth, bursting with Ice Light and attacking Moth. Moth, fly to the left, and then use poison, Anew said. Moth immediately flew up, its wings vibrated, and many phosphorus powders flew, but before the attack was fully exerted, Articuno's freezing ray sprayed on it, spraying it to the side. What a fast speed. Anew's face changed slightly. Moth stabilizes its body, speeds up, and sprinkles phosphorus powder all around. Moth's wings fluttered, and the speed increased by butterfly dance was fully reflected at this time. It flew around the field, and the phosphorus powder around it spread throughout the field. Articuno, blizzard, Zahoo said. Articuno's wings vibrated, and ice and snow flew everywhere, blowing away the phosphorus powder of the moth in an instant, isolating all the toxins. Moth, wind up, said Anew. The moth's 2 pairs of large wings vibrated, and a strong wind blew up, fighting against Articuno's blizzard. The phosphorus powder around was flying around again, and the moth and Articuno were inevitably stuck to some, but neither of them was affected. Needless to say, Rao was originally something on it, and Articuno was not affected, because it was not stuck to much. Articuno, steel wings, said Zahoo. Articuno's right wing shone brightly, and flew away quickly. Moth danced lightly, using the airflow it induced to cleverly avoid Articuno's steel wings. Okay, Moth, take advantage of this time, to use paralysis powder on Articuno, said Anew. Moth's wings trembled, and paralysis powder fell on Articuno's body. Articuno chirped and showed a trace of pain. Articuno, are you okay? Said Zahoo. Articuno called out in response, and said directly in his heart, RHUI, can you super evolve? No, this moth is not enough for you to super evolve. Bingwoo, come closer, Zahoo said. Articuno nodded and flew again, with ice light flashing in its mouth, and a shield appeared around Articuno. Although it was hit by the paralysis powder, its powerful strength allowed it to still fly in this situation. Moth, hold on, Anew said. The moth's black eyes, like bubbles, glowed, and a powerful shield appeared around its body. Articuno crashed into the pier and got nothing. Okay, Moth will take this opportunity to use poison powder, Anew said. Moth faced Articuno, and sprinkled a lot of poison powder, hitting Articuno's face head on. Articuno's face turned purple, and showed an uncomfortable expression. Okay, mental strength, Anew said. The blue light enveloped the moth's body, and the terrifying and powerful superpowers rushed out, controlling the whole body of Articuno, and smashing it hard to the ground. The last blow, Moth, destroy the death ray, Anew said. Moth opened its mouth wide, and a powerful energy beam condensed in its mouth. However, before it could burst out, a bone-chilling icy light suddenly burst out from the ground and hit Moth in an instant. Moth groaned in pain, and the destruction death ray in its mouth also exploded out of control at this time. Its body quickly fell to the ground, and lost its combat ability. At the same time, Articuno flew high in the sky, and used a trick of praying for rain, which brought down a large amount of rain, to wash away the paralysis powder and poison powder on its body, and then flew to Zahoo. Enjoy. Thank you for your hard work, Articuno. Zahoo touched Articuno's head and said, what you used just now was absolute zero, Anew said. Although it was just a question, the tone was affirmative. Only absolute zero could kill Moth instantly. Not bad. Zahoo nodded. So when you were attacked by the mental power just now, you used the mind's eye to lock, and then used absolute zero, but you didn't seem to give any instructions, Anew said strangely. That's because the tacit understanding between me and Articuno has long surpassed the point of giving orders with my mouth. We can just give orders in our mind. Just now, I gave orders with my mouth just to scare you, just for the fatal blow now, Zahoo said with a smile. It seems that I'm really unlucky. I didn't expect to meet you who can communicate with my heart. Otherwise, even if the power of absolute zero is very high, I can still defend it. Anew smiled bitterly, and shook his head. Not to mention, that Zahoo deliberately gave orders with his mouth to confuse you. Even if he didn't, and just gave orders in his mind, he would not be able to predict it. Just good luck. Zahoo didn't feel proud. There was no grudge between them. After the game, they could naturally be friends. It's not about luck or not. I originally wanted to learn from you to improve my strength and hope to get a better result in the next King Challenge. But I didn't expect to lose to you. Will you participate in the next King Challenge? Anew said. That depends on whether I'm there. If I'm traveling in Hana or SYNOPSIS at that time, there will be nothing I can do. Zahu said with a smile. I didn't expect that such a young talent would appear in your Kanto, who is a few years younger than our SYNOPSIS champion Takran. In the guest seats, Kikuno smiled at Kona. You are too flattering, Zahu. Among the champions of various regions, Miss Takran should be the youngest. It will take some time for Zahu to catch up. Kona said politely. Some time. Kikuno shook his head. This battle didn't show much, but the frozen bad was no worse than Takran's land shark. By the way, I heard that among the SYNOPSIS 4 Heavenly Kings, the Psycho King Amatsu is already challenging, and the Fire King Day and the Insect King Anew are all preparing. Are you preparing too? Kona said. Championship is something that young people think about. At my age, I'm just waiting to retire. If I can't find a qualified person, I will leave now. Old guy Zabo is more comfortable. He now runs a gym and lives a leisurely life. Kikuno smiled. Then it's our turn to fight next. Kona said. I couldn't ask for more. The reputation of the Kanto Ice Queen is well known even in SYNOPSIS. But I'm unlucky. I specialize in the Earth attribute, which happens to be restrained by your Ice attribute. Kikuno said. Kona smiled and didn't respond. After reaching their level, although attribute restraint is still useful, it is not as great as ordinary people imagine, especially Kikuno, the oldest king in SYNOPSIS, who is even more difficult to mess with. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 Snow Mountain. Brother, you won. Zahu left the game and sat in the guest seat on the side. Ozzy ran towards him excitedly. Work hard. When you finish Kalos, you can almost participate in the King Challenge and fight with Anew. Zahu said. Can you? Ozzy's eyes lit up. Can he really be so strong? Suddenly he had some self-doubt. Yes. Zahu nodded. If he finished Kalos, Greninja, Charizard, Lizard King, Snorlax, Pikachu, and Infernape, 6 of them together, Anew might not be able to withstand it. After all, the king is not as unattainable as most trainers think. It is just the top 4 in a game, but the strong people in that area basically participate in that game, so the gold content is very high. But there are also many people who did not participate for many reasons, such as the elderly, those who are not interested, those who are sick, those with a bad background, and those who are not lucky in the game, and are restrained in various ways, so they can't get good results. So although the 4 Heavenly Kings are basically genuine, there are occasionally some water. For example, Liu, the bug-type Heavenly King of the SYNOPSIS League. In the animation, it is really embarrassing to say that he is a Heavenly King, a dignified Heavenly King, but all the Pokémon were captured by Kajero and the other 2. It really made all the Heavenly Kings lose face. You know, even the stronger gym trainers usually beat Team Rocket. And even more embarrassing, in the Heavenly King Challenge, when challenging Bamboo Orchid, Liu's trump card Pokémon turned out to be the hunting swallowtail that he had given up when he was young and had hardly trained. He trained it all by himself outside. Then I will definitely work hard. After receiving Zahu's affirmation, Ozzy said with passion. A newborn calf is not afraid of a tiger. He doesn't have much respect for the Heavenly King champion himself. Okay, next, let's go to Yuansu City. Don't go there for the time being. Come with me to the White Snow Mountain first. Zahu said. Oh. Ozzy nodded obediently and didn't ask what to do in the White Snow Mountain. In short, listen to your brother and you won't go wrong. By the way, Misty, did you participate in the Johto League this time? Zahu asked. Yes, and I got the same number of badges as Ozzy. Zyuksha replied. Yes, I did. Same thing. You guys follow me for the next section of the road. I'll take you to see some legendary Pokémon. Also, go to the Whirlpool Islands and participate in a competition specifically for water Pokémon. Zahu said. Legendary Pokémon, a competition specifically for water Pokémon. Xyloxia's eyes sparkled. That's right, you and Xyloxi can both participate, although the champion must be mine, Zahu said. Hearing Zahu's boasting, Xyloxia and Xyloxi both looked disgusted. What's your expression? Do you think what I said is wrong? Zahu said. That's right. If you can only use water Pokémon, then you just have a Golduck. We won't necessarily lose, Xyloxi said. Yes. Xyloxia also said firmly. She now has a Gyarados and a Milotic in her hands. She is very confident in the water battle. Then we'll see how you perform. Let's all watch the game now, Zahu said with a smile. Oh, brother, who do you think will win this game? Xyloxi asked curiously. Of course it's Kona. Kona is good at water and ice Pokémon, both of which are strain ground type Pokémon. Xyloxia said. It should be a tie, Zahu said as he watched the game. Tie. Xyloxia was a little puzzled. Zahu didn't say anything else, just watch the game. Overall, Kona was slightly better, but not obviously stronger. And this was a performance match, so it should end in a tie. In fact, most performance matches end in this way, and he and Aju are actually exceptions. Aju thought he was stronger than Zahu at first, so he planned to give Zahu a little bit, and ended up beautifully in the end, but later he found that Zahu was stronger than him, so he didn't hold back. Facing Aju's full strength attack, and the poison, Zahu felt that, if he showed mercy, the Pokémon might be poisoned, so he used Articuno to defeat it quickly. But even so, both sides will still fight seriously in the first two games, and there are many things that can be learned from the fight between the two senior kings. Tim stood aside, but he seemed particularly uncomfortable. There were only a few people who could sit in the guest seats. In addition to Zahu's group, only Aya could sit in the guest seats. But compared to him, Aya was more familiar with Zahu and his group, so he seemed isolated. Seeing Zahu and his group talking happily, Tim secretly clenched his fists. All of you are going to participate in the Johto conference this time, right? Okay, I'll see how many capable people there are in your Johto area. Zahu and his group naturally didn't know what Tim was thinking. They watched the game attentively. The final result did not exceed Zahu's expectations. It ended in a draw, but the process was wonderful. Kona's calmness and Kikuno's experience were all worth learning from. After the performance, Zahu and his group said goodbye to Aju and his group, and took the train to Baeksu Mountain. Okay, everyone, take a nap here. When we wake up tomorrow morning, we will arrive at the station, Zahu said. Brother Zahu, what legendary Pokémon are we going to find in Snow Mountain? Xyloxia asked curiously. Articuno, although I have one, Kona doesn't have it yet, so I plan to catch it together, Zahu said. There is also Articuno? This way we can see powerful Pokémon again when we wake up tomorrow, Xyloxi said excitedly. That's not necessarily true. There has always been a legend of Articuno in Snow Mountain, but it is not so easy to find. We may have to look for it for a few days, meow, meow said. No, if Xyloxi wants to see it, he will definitely see it tomorrow morning, Zahu said very confidently. Why did he take Xyloxi with him? Isn't it because Xyloxi has the buff of encountering legendary beasts? If he doesn't take him with him, he will be looking for Articuno by himself. If he takes him with him, maybe Articuno will come out by himself. After that, there is nothing to do, and you can't train Pokémon on the train. So basically I just lean on the chair and take a nap. Of course, Kajiro and Meow Meow were exceptions. One man and one cat played cards with Monini. A night passed quietly. When the train stopped, Zahu and his companions, who had been awakened by the cold outside, put on their prepared cotton clothes and got off the train. A vast expanse of white snow came into view. Looking around, the whole world was white. Zahu released Articuno immediately. When Articuno saw the scenery of the snow-capped mountains, it flew excitedly in the sky, scattering little ice crystals. Okay, wait a while, fly excitedly again. Help me find out if there is an Articuno inside. If there is, bring it out, and after Kona captures it, you will have one more companion, Zahu said. Articuno nodded, flapped its wings, and flew deep into the snow-capped mountains. Zahu and his companions followed closely. When they reached the middle of the mountain, several sharp bird calls were heard, and they saw two Articunos flying out of the snow-capped mountains one after another, fighting in the air. Chapter 198 The Charm of the Ice Queen. Articuno, what's wrong? Zahu recognized his Articuno and asked in his heart. I told it that someone was coming to capture it and asked it to come with me. It didn't listen and wanted to beat me. RHUI, can I beat it directly? I think I can have more little brothers. Articuno said. No, this is Kona's. Zahu replied in his heart and then said to Kona, Sister Kona, you can do your Pokémon. I won't get involved. I'm not weak enough to need you to help me capture Pokémon. Kona smiled slightly and a Pokéball appeared from her waist and said, come out, my most trusted partner, Dragonite. Dragonite appeared on the ice, feeling the familiar ice and snow climate, and also showed a cheerful expression. When he saw the frozen bird fighting in the sky, he realized who his opponent was this time, and immediately showed a vigilant look. Kona gave Zahu a look, and Zahu immediately understood, and let his Articuno shake off the one on the opposite side. Zahu's Articuno immediately understood, and its steel wings shone, hitting the opposite Articuno hard, knocking it down from the sky, and then flew back to Zahu. The wild Articuno quickly stabilized its body in midair and rushed towards Zahu, but before the attack arrived, the freezing ray of Lang Lang arrived first, forcing it to stop. Articuno, next, I will fight you. If you lose, you will become my Pokémon. Kona said. Seeing that Kona, a human, dared to say that he wanted to subdue it, Articuno's eyes revealed a bit of annoyance, and its wings vibrated, a strong cold current surged, and blizzards flew. Blizzard? In this case, Lang Lang, we will also use blizzards. Kona said. Dragonite let out a pleasant cry, and the wind and snow suddenly increased around it. It attacked Articuno with heavy snow. It not only did not lose the upper hand, but it became even more powerful, and it seemed to blow back Articuno's ice and snow. This Dragonite is so strong. Zyozzy was surprised. He also had a Dragonite, but compared with the two, his Dragonite was completely inferior. How can Dragonite not be strong, when it can make Dragonite suffer several times? It is the strongest trump card in Sister Kona's hand. Zahu said. When he fought Kona before, he lost to Dragonite several times, and even Snorlax's defense could not withstand it. After all, Dragonite has more than just ice-type moves. Zyraksha said nothing, but her eyes were fixed on Kona and Dragonite in the battle. Although Kona is the king of ice-type, more than half of the Pokémon have water-type moves, and he is also a recognized master of water-type. As a divine beast that was born to control ice and snow, Articuno found that it could not suppress the opponent in terms of ice and snow, and suddenly became more angry. It flapped its wings, and sprayed a strong freezing light from its mouth. Chenglong, let's use freezing light too, Kona said. The ice light from Chenglong's mouth erupted, and it was opposite to the ice light of Articuno, and it actually suppressed the ice light of Articuno, and shot it at Articuno. Articuno wailed and retreated, and it took a long time to control its body. Articuno, be my Pokémon. Kona invited. Except for those first-line super beasts, the rest of the wild Pokémon were no match for her Pokémon. This is also the law of this world. If Pokémon want to become really strong, they need the help of humans. But Articuno didn't listen, flying fast, looming in the heavy snow, almost impossible to catch with human vision. Chenglong was unable to react for a while, and was hit by the freezing light of Articuno. Although it was not very painful, it was always unpleasant to be hit. Kona frowned slightly, looking at the looming Articuno in the snow and said, is a characteristic of snow hiding? It's really a bit troublesome in this heavy snow, but the more this is the case, the more worth it is to subdue. Chenglong, pray for rain. Kona's momentum gradually became fierce. Chenglong sang gracefully, and large dark clouds gathered around it, and heavy rain poured down. Articuno, who could hide in the snow, was forced to show up. Then, thunder. Kona said. Yellow electric current surged around Chenglong, connecting to the rain in the sky, and violently struck Articuno in the air. Articuno let out a shrill scream. If humans were hurt like this, they would know that they couldn't win and should leave, but Pokémon were obviously the opposite. After being hurt, Articuno just became more furious, its wings vibrated, and the ice and snow around it intensified, and in an instant, the dark clouds covered the sky. In terms of the ability to control the weather, the three sacred birds have a greater advantage than ordinary Pokémon. Kona looked around and did not actively issue an attack command. The dragon she trained was better than the wild Articuno in terms of attack, defense and physical strength. The only thing was speed. It was almost impossible for the dragon, which mainly lived in the water, to defeat the Articuno flying freely in the sky. Especially in the snow-hidden state, Articuno's ability to dodge was greatly improved. But in battle, not moving is not necessarily worse than moving. The bone-chilling cold wind blew past her ears, blowing the lavender hair tips, bringing bursts of coolness, but Kona seemed to be unaware of it. There was only calmness on her delicate face. At this moment, Kona was more stunning than usual, and her temperament was even colder. Trainers in Pokémon are often one and the same. Kona is good at water and ice Pokémon, and her personality also has two sides. She is usually as gentle as water, but she is as calm as ice when fighting. It is even impossible to associate her in battle with her usual self. In other words, in her normal state, she is called Kona, and at this time, she is the Ice Queen. Quietly closing his eyes, he listened to the changes in the ice and snow around him. Zuain only hid his body, but he didn't really disappear. Feeling the rhythm of the snowy mountain, Kona's heart began to merge with nature at this time, capturing the changes around him. In a trance, he suddenly felt the different rhythm of life in the ice and snow around him. He suddenly opened his eyes and said, "Chenglong, here we come, right now, Mount Tay is pressing down on us." Chenglong, who knew nothing in the ice and snow, heard Kona's command, but jumped up without thinking, and flew into the sky suddenly. At this moment, a pair of eyes appeared under it, which were the eyes of Articuno. Chenglong suddenly pressed down, and Articuno cried out, and wanted to fly out. Kona, who had already calculated the time, would not let it leave so easily. He used all his strength, and fell at a high speed, like a meteor. With a loud bang, Articuno cried out in grief, but was pressed down by Chenglong and couldn't move. He tried his best to flap his wings, trying to flip Chenglong on his body. However, Chenglong weighed more than 500 kilograms, so how could it flip it over, just because it wanted to? Chenglong, water cannon. Kona's cold voice continued. Chenglong lowered his head, and sprayed a thick column of water, hitting Articuno's head hard, hitting the vital point. Articuno could not move, and finally fell to the ground powerlessly. Go, Pokeball. Kona threw a green Pokeball and hit Articuno's head. A few red lights flashed in the center of the Pokeball, and finally stabilized. Successful capture. Kona smiled, like a glacier melting, restoring its former beauty, and released Articuno again. The released Articuno seemed to realize the current situation, tilted its head, and rubbed Kona's cheek. Kona touched Articuno's head, and showed a sweet smile. He finally captured an ice-type beast. Mr. Yantai's friend's ball was indeed very effective. Chapter 199 Snow Mountain Warmth. It's been conquered successfully. Zahu walked up with a smile, and was about to reach out to touch Articuno, but Articuno didn't give him face, showing a fierce look, and spurted out a ball of cold air from its mouth. Zahu was startled and quickly dodged. Articuno gave a disdainful look, showing the arrogance of the mythical beast. If it weren't for Kona conquering it with the friendship ball, which increased their intimacy, Articuno wouldn't be so friendly, even if it was conquered now, and Zahu didn't improve the friendship, so it was natural to be excluded. Sister Kona, it seems that you, Articuno, need to be disciplined, Zahu said with a dark face. Although it was nothing, it was always unpleasant to be suddenly sprayed like this. Then do it yourself, Kona said. It didn't expect Articuno to be so arrogant and really needed to be disciplined, otherwise it would be detrimental to the stability of the team. However, it was not easy for Ke to do this kind of thing by herself, so she let Zahu be the bad guy and she would be the good guy. After Articuno was beaten and cried, she would comfort him and improve his favorability so that Articuno would be more obedient in future training. I've been waiting for you to say this. All three of you, come out. There's a new little brother for you to train. Zahu threw out the three divine birds. The three divine birds were surprised when they saw the new Articuno, and then they looked at each other with a bad smile, looking at the new Articuno, as if they were prey. especially Zapdos. It was so excited. Finally there was another little brother. I finally don't have to be the youngest. Articuno was stunned at first and didn't expect Zahu to have all 3 divine birds in his hand, but Zapdos and Moltres were natural enemies of it, and Articuno had just beaten it, so it showed dissatisfaction and even wanted to attack. You 3 take it in, fight inside, and teach it the principles of being a bird, Zahu said. Zahu's 3 sacred birds made cheerful sounds and showed a provocative expression to the new Articuno in tacit understanding. This Articuno also had a bad temper and followed it directly. The 4 birds flew high in the sky, ready for a fierce battle. Okay, don't watch their fight. The 3 sacred birds will play for a long time to train the new brother. You guys finally came to the snow mountain. Come here to have fun in the snow. Release all the Pokémon, build snowmen, have snowball fights, or ski. It's all fine. Zahu said to Zyozzy and Zyajiro. Build a snowman? Zyrajiro's eyes lit up and showed a nostalgic expression. I was also the snowman building champion in elementary school. Zahu rolled his eyes. How many championships did you win in elementary school? And, you won so many championships when you were a child, but you still have nothing now. Do you want to prove that you are good at a young age, but you are not necessarily good when you grow up? Zyajiro didn't stay proud for long, and Meow Meow excitedly picked up a snowball and smashed it on Zyrajiro's proud face, knocking him down in an instant. With him, Meow Meow, there is no capital for Kajiro to be proud. Wow, Meow Meow, I'm going to kill you. Kajiro, who was knocked down, immediately shouted madly and grabbed a ball of snow on the side and threw it at Meow Meow. Crazy scratching. Meow Meow proudly shouted out his special move, and his cat claws suddenly became longer, crushing the snowball in an instant, and said with a face that deserved a beating, in front of Meow Meow's crazy scratching, no snowball can hit Meow Meow's face. Ouch, who hit me? Meow Meow has not finished speaking, and suddenly a snowball hits its face. Meow Meow is angry, and an excited Monini comes to his ear, and he sees Monini standing next to Kajiro, holding a snowball in his hand. Monini, you actually help Kajiro and not me. We are both Pokémon, Meow Meow said sadly. Monini threw another snowball with a nonchalant look on his face. Although we are all Pokémon and good friends, Kajiro is my trainer. Seeing the enthusiastic performance of Monini, Kajiro suddenly remembered that he was a human trainer. At that moment, he unceremoniously released long-tailed crawlers, Pidgeot, Growlithe, and Venusaur, and then ordered them to attack Meowth. Meow, Kajiro, you shameless guy, you actually used so many Pokémon to attack me, using the number to bully the minority. 5 Pokémon plus 1 person attacked from different angles. Even if Meowth's crazy scratching was fierce, it could not withstand it. It could only start to run away while running, accusing Kajiro of morality. However, would Kajiro be afraid of morality? Or, does he have such a thing? 1 person and 5 pets smashed it so happily that Meowth hugged his head and ran around. Finally, he picked up the Goron Weng on the side and put it in front of him as a shield. Goron Weng was confused, but when the snowballs came, he still instinctively used the back punch to bounce the snowballs back. Kajiro was caught off guard and all hit him in the face. Wow, Weng is so useful. Meow Meow loves you so much. You will be Meow Meow's best friend from now on. Meow Meow said excitedly. So nasty as expected, Weng responded enthusiastically, with colorful light flashing on his body, rebounding all physical attacks, faithfully playing the role of a good shield. So the 2 sides left and started a fierce offensive and defensive battle, and also involved the trio of Zyozzy next to them, and finally a 3-way melee. Aren't you going to join? Kona looked at Zahu and said. These are things that only children play. Adults don't play such boring things, okay? Zahu shook his head with disdain. How old are you? Kajiro is older than you. Kona said with a smile. That's the appearance. In terms of mental age, I'm definitely older than him, okay? No, it should be older than you. Zahu refuted righteously. Yes, that's you who are already an adult. May I ask you, what adult things are we going to do now? Kona looked at Zahu and said with a smile. In fact, another specialty of Beigshu Mountain is hot springs. Zahu showed an inexplicable smile on his face. Little bad boy. Kona's beautiful face flushed with two blushes, and she said coquettishly, "In fact, you are already a big bad boy." Zahu corrected, "Some things should be made clear at the right time." "Then let's go." Kona turned her head, with a hint of shyness in her tone. Zahu's eyes lit up, revealing a proud smile, and took Kona's hand. It was obviously in the ice and snow, but it was not cold, but warm, and seemed to be a little sweaty. Zahu smiled. The weather outside was very cold, but his heart was hot. Looking back at Zyozzy and the others who were playing snowballs, Zahu looked disdainful. Children are children, and they only play games for children. On this day, the snow was heavy and the weather was very cold, but the hot spring was very hot, and the heart was even warmer. The misty hot air warmed the blood vessels all over the body. The blood flowed, warm and comfortable. This feeling, Zahu and Kona will never forget in their lives. And this day is destined to be a day that Zahu and Kona will never forget in their lives. Transforming from a boy into a man is a long process, or it can happen in an instant. Chapter 200, Boise. There is a small house on the top of a snowy mountain. This is a place specially prepared by the Pokémon Center for lost travelers to rest in the snow. However, these days, due to some special reasons, this Pokémon Center has been requisitioned. Waking up slowly in the warmth, looking at the beautiful face sleeping next to him, Zahu was satisfied. The famous Ice Queen, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Alliance, was finally taken down by him. After a gentle kiss on Kona's smooth forehead, Kona seemed to have some reaction, and showed a sweet smile, but still did not wake up, just squeezed in the direction of Zahu. Zahu smiled slightly, thought about it, lowered his head, and continued to sleep. The quilt is so comfortable and the wife is so beautiful, why get up, sleep, and continue to sleep? Zahu lay comfortably in the quilt until a shrill ring rang. Zahu was full of displeasure. He had turned off the alarm clock directly these days. Who called? Did he have no brains? Without thinking, he hung up the phone and went to sleep. However, just as Zahu hung up, the phone rang again. After several rounds of calls, Zahu answered the line in a bad mood. "Which bastard called? There is no reason. I will kill you now. Boss, it's me, meow meow. The 3 days are up. Shouldn't we set off for the Whirlpool Islands now? Our plane will arrive in more than an hour." Meow meow's aggrieved voice sounded. "Is it 3 days so soon? Then it will be another 3 days. Hang up, don't bother me. Otherwise, I will fire you." Zahu hung up. After he finished speaking, Meow Meow on the other end was confused. What did I do? He even skipped the threat of deducting my salary and jumped directly to firing me. After Zahu hung up, he looked disgusted. Single meow is single meow, and he has no sense at all. Do you think you can only be paired with Kajiro? Is it a coincidence? No, it is inevitable. Okay, it's been 3 days. We should get up. There are still many days ahead, but if you miss your Lugia, you will have nowhere to cry in the future. Kona, who had woken up at some point, said. To subdue that Lugia, 1 relies on luck, 2 relies on coaxing, 3 relies on strength, and 4 relies on destiny. 3 days more, or 3 days less will not have much impact. Besides, if you miss it, you miss it. Anyway, my life will not change much with it or without it, but with you or without you, the difference is too big. And with Zyozzy, I will meet it in the future. Zahu said, follow Zyozzy, you will always meet the legendary beast. Don't come on, get up quickly, go to the Azure Gym to get the badge first, and then go to the Whirlpool Islands. Kona pulled Zahu's ear with one hand and said, okay, I'll get up now. Zahu had no choice but to beg for mercy and could only reluctantly get up. It was so cold, and it took a lot of willpower to get out of the quilt, but his wife had spoken, so Zahu had to get up. Finally, everyone reunited at the train station at the foot of the mountain. Brother, why did you take so long up there? I couldn't even see you at the hot springs. Zyozzy asked curiously. You'll know when you grow up. Zahu was too lazy to explain and said casually. Yes, you'll know when you grow up, right? Zahu's sister-in-law. Zyozzy called out to Kona. Kona blushed slightly, glared at Zyozzy with a reproachful look and said, Zyozzy calls me sister-in-law, so what's your status? Do you like Zyozzy? No way. I also call Zahu big brother, and how could I like Zyozzy, a fool? Zyozzy said with a red face. Zyozzy, what are you talking about? Where am I stupid? Zyossi retorted. If you're not stupid, then no one is stupid. Zahu patted Zyos's head and walked into the train to the airport. Two stupid kids, but it's okay. You have a lot of time, so it's okay. If you're a little stupid, it's all the same. Kona smiled and touched Zyos's head, then walked into the train. What does this mean? Zyossi was still puzzled. Hey, Zyossi, I'll show you more romance movies in the future. Cyanogang also shook his head and patted Zyos's shoulder. He just looked at Zahu and Kona, who went in to form a couple, and suddenly felt like crying. We are all 15 years old. Why are others already holding goddesses, while I'm still a single dog? God, please let a Miss Joy or Miss Junsha fall in love with me. I will definitely take care of her for the rest of her life. Cyanogang sighed and walked into the train. Finally, Kajiro and others also went in, and headed for the airport. After that, at noon, everyone arrived in Azure City and set off towards the Azure Gym. We just got off. Brother Zahu, don't you want to take a break? Cyanogang asked curiously. It's okay. The trainer of the Azure Gym, RC, is a fighting type. Lucario can beat him, Zahu said. Because he considered RC to be a good person, Zahu did not say bad things about him to his face. In fact, among so many gyms in Johto, Zahu felt that the Azure Gym was the easiest to beat. In the animation, Zyossi fought two people with Laurel Leaf. Seeing Zahu so confident, Cyanogang and others did not object. As for Zyossi, no matter what state he was in, as long as there was a gym, he would go to fight as soon as possible. When approaching the Azure Gym, a burst of hurried footsteps suddenly sounded, and a middle-aged man with a sturdy figure and a guriki ran towards the Azure Gym. 1, 2, 1, a C. Kona suddenly called out, but he recognized that the middle-aged man was RC from the Azure Gym. King Kona? The running man heard Kona's voice, stopped panting, looked at Kona and said, "It's King Kona. What are you doing here? Do you want to challenge the Azure Gym?" Of course, my boyfriend Zahu is going to participate in the Johto League, so he came to get the badge. Kona habitually wanted to say that he was his younger brother, but after thinking about the current situation, he automatically changed to boyfriend. Boyfriend? King Kona actually has a boyfriend. RC was shocked and looked unbelievable. Ice Queen Kona and Rika, one of the 4 heavenly kings of Johto, were the goddesses in the hearts of countless trainers in Kanto. Now one of them was picked without anyone noticing. Wait, Zahu? You are the one who discovered the fairy attribute that can restrain the fighting attribute. It turns out that the magazine is not lying. Wife, your guess is true. After saying that, RC ran inside excitedly. Seeing RC's jumpy behavior, Zahu scratched his head. This guy's really crazy. Let's go. We haven't got the badge yet. Kona smiled. Although she also felt that RC's brain circuit was very jumpy, he looked very good. Yes, let's go. Zahu smiled. The group walked into the gym together. Before they said anything, RC excitedly treated them to a meal, and then served each of them a bowl of rice. That's right, it was a bowl of rice, not a bowl of rice. Pokémon fighting is very strenuous, so everyone should eat and drink enough before competing, RC said. Yes, everyone, eat more, and it's best to beat my husband. RC's wife came in with a big bowl of food and smiled gently. Zahu took it with a smile, thinking to himself, it's really hard to imagine that RC, such a rough and big-hearted man, could marry such a gentle and beautiful wife. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.